Hey guys. This is part 7 of What If Naruto Was Smart and a SEAL Master. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 41 Mission: Stop the Jashinists. Naruto stood in front of Kakashi, giving his report on the mission, with Shimon adding his observations. Then the other four gave their reports before Kakashi dismissed them. He only let Naruto in his Dark Phoenix disguise stay. ANBU Teams 7 and 15 are to be ready to go in 10 minutes, Kakashi ordered, and a slight blip leaving was the only indication for Naruto that an ANBU had left to follow the order. Now, Naruto, Kakashi turned to his student. I wonder why you decided that retreat was the best course of action. I knew that I wouldn't be able to protect all the victims from two Jashinists, Sensei, Naruto answered, pulling off the hood and lower face mask. Well, if the worst would have happened and the only way to kill the aspiring high priestess, before she could start the ritual, was to also kill the captives, I would have done so. With Haiden in the picture as well though, it wasn't an option anymore. I know that I could take on one Jashinist with enough preparation, even Haiden, but not when he had the stronger position. With two of them there, he could have covered Mala to let her do the ritual. We needed to get everybody away. After all, the ritual didn't really care if the people were already dead before you bled them out. And it takes some time before a body doesn't bleed anymore after dying. It wasn't possible within the time perimeters, Sensei, Naruto explained. Good to see that your success on other missions hasn't gone to your head, Naruto, and you are able to judge when you should rather retreat and make a better plan, Kakashi stated satisfied. I was a bit concerned about it. What we need are some seals that the two won't expect to equip the ANBU teams with. I want you and your shadow clones to draw as many seals as you can until the ANBU teams will arrive here. I need standard explosive tags, poison seals, elemental seals, poison Saban shooter seals, chakra suppressor seals, those nasty new blood vessel bursting seals, and the chakra beam shooter seals that Niji tested in Snow Country, Kakashi listed. Understood, Naruto confirmed and made 25 shadow clones, which immediately flashed away. Then he repeated the process 6 more times, simply because the office wasn't large enough for more clones at once. He knelt on the floor and created the poison seals himself, with a bottle of liquid poison that Kakashi handed him. He mixed the poison into the ink and the poison would enter the body of the victim on contact. Any kind of liquid or powdered poison was suited for this, as they could be mixed with the ink. Though liquid form was better. Once they were done, he also made the counter seals. It wouldn't do after all if an ANBU was accidentally poisoned to have him die from it. The time for the ANBU to get to the office was gone, and Naruto back in disguise when they appeared. Only those ANBU that constantly guarded the Hokage in his office and a few others were privy to his identity after all. The mission is the termination of Jashinists Haiden and Mala. A team of Chunin has encountered them and managed to just get their captives away before they could perform a ritual that would have summoned a Reaper spirit to turn Mala into a high priestess of Jashin. It won't take the two too long to find replacement victims. While there aren't any villages close by, it will only give us 4 to 5 days at most. If they want to get things done quickly, they will not care for stealth this time around. They know that we're up to their attempt now, and that will lead to them rushing their plans. The seal that they set up was handicapped, but it will be back to working order by the time they will need to catch replacement sacrifices. They need 50 of them to call forth the Reaper spirit. Haiden can't be killed, even if you stab him, behead him, or burn him. You would need to totally destroy his body to succeed. He already has absorbed a Reaper spirit after massacring his old village, the Hot Springs village. The team that was on the mission overheard that the two intend to bring God Jashin into this world by Haiden impregnating Mala, once she has reached High Priestess status. It has to be prevented. We don't need a god in human form, should it be possible, that delights in causing pain and massacring people. We would be thrown into a new war, should that happen. Dark Phoenix has encountered the two and can give you an estimation of some of their abilities, Kakashi informed the ANBU teams, and Naruto continued by retelling the way the fight went. Then the ANBUs were given the seals Naruto had prepared. You will be taken to the last known location by Naruto Namikaze, as he has left a flying thunder god Kunai there. Naruto will then return to Konoha. This kind of mission is beyond his level so far. The seal is located about 5 kilometers from the campsite where you will start. Dark Phoenix will stay with you as a seal supplying backup. He will only engage should he be needed as a seal's master. We can't afford to let him face S-ranked ninjas before he's ready, Kakashi informed the ANBU team, which confirmed the orders. Then 5 of Naruto's shadow clones entered the office to get the ANBUs to the site. Soon Kakashi was the only one left in the office, before one clone returned, confirming that they were at the previous campsite and dispelled. Now Kakashi could only hope that they would be able to stop the Jashinis before they could manage to perform their ritual. The 2 ANBU teams and Naruto dashed towards the site of the seal. There was just one problem. Mala had been busy and had created a veritable forest of black thorny vines that attacked at the slightest approach. "Damn, this is going to be tricky," ANBU Badger commented. "What can you tell us about the vines, Dark Phoenix?" Dove asked. "They are controlled by Mala's chakra. During the fight she used them both for attack and defense, and the source was buried underground, which made it difficult to take out," Naruto answered. "I see," Dove replied. "We need an estimation how high they grow. Let's take to the trees around and get a better idea." The team did just that, and found out that the vines had created a large dome over the whole seal. "They must have suspected that we would return to sabotage the seal," Naruto stated, "therefore they set up the best kind of defense that they could muster. Those vines are really tricky to deal with. They can be burned down, but they regrow very fast." "I see. Well, let's see how they deal with this," Mantis stated and let a swarm of insects loose, which told Naruto that he was in Aburame. The group observed if the insects could get through the vines or destroy them. Right now they needed to work carefully and not risk their lives. The 2 Jashinis couldn't have got new victims yet. Perhaps in a few hours they might be able to get them if they were lucky. But not right now, as the first team had only been in Konoha for 2 hours before the ANBU were sent out by the Hokage. Then a smaller number of insects returned to Mantis, and he listened to their report. "The vines have a potent chakra-reactive venom in them. My insects can't destroy them. The recovery rate is too fast for any damage they can cause before they die to actually count," Mantis reported. "There is chakra that streams from the ground into the vines," Bear reported, making Naruto believe that he was a Hyuga. "The pods from which the vines originate are about 4 meters deep inside the earth. No way that we can direct a strike there with the vines attacking." "Dark Phoenix, do you have any strong fire seals?" Badger asked. "Yes," Naruto answered and took a pile of 20 seals out. "These cover about 20 meters in diameter. They release fire for about 3 minutes before they burn up. It won't be enough to destroy all vines, but maybe enough to let us clear an aisle through the wall of vines. The question is how to destroy the pods in the ground before the fire goes out and the vines grow back. After all, the fire would also hinder us from reaching them," Dove pondered. "No real idea on that front. You would probably need a powerful earth jutsu to just loosen one of those pods," Bear stated. "I doubt we would have enough time to get them destroyed while the fire rages." "How many of the pods are inside the ground, and are there vines that go downwards?" Naruto asked, having a crazy idea. "As far as I can see, there aren't any vines going down. All parts grow upwards. And there is a close net of them all around the seal." "I would say at least 100 of the things," Bear answered. Let me think this through," Naruto requested and started to draw on a notepad. The ANBU watched him while thinking about ways to get through the dome as well. "This might work, but I'm not totally sure. Hokage-sama asked me to create poison tags for the Jashinis after I reported for the first part of this mission. I also have a number of different poisons in my arsenal that can be used to target plants." "Mantis, could your insects determine what kind of poison it is that runs through the vines?" Naruto addressed the Aburame ANBU. "As far as they can tell, it is blood-based and makes the erythrocytes burst," Mantis answered. "Okay, they would have to be adapted to consuming mammals then, otherwise that kind of venom doesn't make sense. No plant produces a venom that doesn't help with gathering food or defense against its natural predators. Meaning this one is most probably a carnivore. And carnivorous plants normally react badly against acid," Naruto concluded. "Where are you going with this?" Dove asked. "If we manage to inject a strong and fast-acting acid into the pods from below, we might have a chance to take them out. While the fire will rage on the surface, keeping the pods too busy to notice anything underground, an Earth-style user could use the underground fish projection technique to inject a number of the pods. We only need to take out enough that the regrown vines can't reach us anymore. We only need access to the seal, not take down the whole dome. After all, they can't afford to plant those things everywhere, as their vines would mess up the seal. They will be a good distance away from it," Naruto reasoned. "It could work." "Do you have such an acid?" Dove asked. "No, but I know how to make it. I would need an hour of preparation time, as I don't have the right equipment here," Naruto informed him. "Then get started. This is our best shot. We will try some other ways as well. Better to not bet on one way that might not work." "We are on a tight schedule after all," Dove ordered, and the ANBU spread out to see if there were any weak spots in the dome. 1 hour later, Naruto was ready and handed the acid mixture to Badger, who used Earth-style jutsus. The other ANBUs took the fire seals and lined up to burn down the vine hedge. Badger sank into the ground, and after waiting for 5 minutes, the ANBU activated the fire seals, creating a raging inferno. They waited, hoping that their plan would work. 3 long minutes the fire burned before the seals stopped releasing it, burning in the process. Fire seals were simply by nature not reusable. They watched if the vines would return in that spot, but so far it seemed as if the plan had worked. They waited for a minute to let some of the heat disappear, and then the ANBU team rushed in, while Naruto stayed outside on orders of Dove. He was to be lookout, and they didn't want him to get caught up in any kind of trap that might be located inside before they had checked. The ANBU group had been told that Dark Phoenix was a special Jonin in rank, which meant that he wasn't really ready for S-rank missions like this one. The one to prevent the seal being used the first time around was an A rank, and it was only because of Naruto's special abilities that he had been sent there. It was too dangerous to send the village's leading seal master on missions like that one, when you had other options. And Naruto's seals had improved the success rate of missions overall by a god amount, which meant that he was even more valuable than the previous seal master in charge of keeping the armory supplied had been. He saw a huge wave of water appearing inside the broken dome of vines, which meant that the ANBU teams had started to erase the seal. He could only hope that it would be fast enough. Had he been the one securing the place, he would at least have left alarms, or set up a second location for the seal and used the known location as a distraction for the enemies he knew to come. His blood went cold. That could actually be possible. They would need to check all around here for a second seal. Had this been his plan, with so much riding on the success, he would have had a contingency plan, including a second seal. He created 50 shadow clones and turned them into small birds. They flew off, searching for a possible second seal. This needed to be done properly. They couldn't afford to overlook anything. The seal was gone 1 hour after the ANBU teams got inside. It turned out that Badger had had some trouble underground, but managed to circumvent a defense against exactly what he had done, attacking the pods from below. There had been a number of much smaller seeds in the ground that could grow into vine spears at high speed, impaling a careless attacker. Not at all a bad scheme. Had Badger not been on the lookout for something like that from the beginning, he would be dead now. Just when Dove wanted to call the mission a success, Naruto started cursing loudly. "We have a problem." I sent a few shadow clones out to scout if there was a second seal, as I pondered what I would have done to make sure that an important event like this would go off without a hitch. I came to the conclusion that I would set up a second seal, in a location a good distance away from here, Naruto told Dove. "The results?" Dove asked. I was right. There is a second seal 20 kilometers in that direction. He pointed towards it, and they even went further than I would have gone. They are ready to perform the ritual. My clone overheard Haiden boast that he had been right in preparing a second group of sacrifices, just in case some heretics were to interfere. The ritual is about to start. Shit, we won't get there in time. Dove cursed. Can your clone do anything? No, it was noticed and killed. Naruto shook his head, and the others are too far away to do anything. We would need about 10 minutes at full speed to get there, and by then the Reaper spirit will be out and entering Mala. We can't allow for them to succeed. We don't need another shinobi war, Bear declared. No, we can't, but we have no way to get there in time, Naruto replied, cursing the fact that he didn't have a flying Thunder God seal there. Then he had an idea. We can probably cut the time to get there down to 5 minutes. That way we might at least have a chance to prevent the unison between Mala and the Reaper spirit. Here, I developed these flying devices for the invasion of Konoha. They are tested, and I have 4 of them sealed on my person. If half of us took them to fly ahead and the others ran there, we might be able to interfere at least, Naruto told them and unsealed the flying devices. How do they work? Dove asked. Just channel chakra into them, and it will be turned into wind chakra, which will propel you, Naruto answered. I have been put onto the flying unit, and I have my own device and am proficient in using it, Seagull stated. I have at least some training in using one of them, but I wasn't made part of the unit, Cheetah added. Then you two are going to be part of the advanced team for sure. Dark Phoenix will need to go as well, as much as I want to keep him out of the heated part of the battle. If the seal is activated, we need his abilities as a seal master to stop them from going through with things. Kraken and I will take the last devices and the others will head to the target's location at top speed. Dark Phoenix, leave them a shadow clone to lead them there, Dove ordered. Yes, Naruto said and made 2 clones, one dispelling immediately to inform the other transformed clones to head to the second seal to run interference where they could. It would be a race against time. They all just hoped, when the 5 members of the advance team took off, that they would be just in time to prevent the worst. Chapter 42, The Reaper Spirit. The group had needed 6 minutes to reach the second site. The sight they found was horrible. All around the seal were dead people, men, women, and even children, that had been slaughtered by cutting their jugular veins and arteries to make them bleed out fast. There was a definite dark presence around, and Mala was lying on an altar made of black vines in the middle of the seal, which was glowing an eerie red. What disturbed them most was that Mala looked ecstatic while the being seemingly was in the middle of the process of entering her body. They had to dodge a volley of kunai, which Haydn had shot at them. "You pests! You can't stop the ritual anymore!" he yelled at them. "Mala is nearly united with the Reaper spirit. You lost. God Jashin will soon be reborn into the world and his glorious reign will last forever." He laughed darkly at that. "Can you do something, Dark Phoenix?" Dove asked. "Not from up here, and I don't know how to get down there with Haydn doing his best to stop us. He only has to keep us busy after all. He has the advantage of being able to ignore all kinds of injuries, and only needs to nick us to draw blood to use his connection curse jutsu. I would need to set up a counterseal to draw the Reaper spirit out again, but that depends on the battle of wills between the one being possessed and the one drawing the spirit out. And I don't know if there still is time. Nobody actually knows how long it takes after the spirit is here. I have no idea how they managed to draw it out this fast." "I thought we had more time," Naruto answered. "Shit! We will have to take a different course of action then. We need to separate them permanently. Then they can't create the offspring into which Jashin can slip," Dove decided. "Easier said than done," Badger commented. "But not impossible," Naruto stated. "They can only have that baby if Mala is capable of conceiving. If we irrevocably destroy her womb, or her ovaries, they can do it all they like, it wouldn't lead to a baby. While 2 high priest Jashinists are a major problem, they would be the lesser evil than an insane god set on destruction and murder being born into this world. Might work, but don't their bodies always recover from all kinds of injuries?" Cheetah asked. "Normal injuries from weapons, yes, but perhaps poison or acid," Dove pondered. "We can at least try. Nothing else to do now that they got the drop on us. Hit them with your best long-distance jutsus. We don't have to hold back and consider hostages anymore. Hit them with all you have. Dark Phoenix, stay in the background and only act if you are safe from direct retaliation. This is now fully an ANBU mission." The others confirmed the orders and Naruto took to a higher altitude, trying to figure out a way to assist without placing himself into danger. He used the chakra beam seals to give range support to the ANBU. It worked fairly well, and it seemed as if Haydn realized the danger of those beams, as he regularly intercepted them with thrown boulders to prevent them hitting Mala. After 3 minutes of intense battle, Mala let out an ecstatic scream and rose from the altar. "Finally! I'm a fully inaugurated High Priestess of God Jashin!" she exclaimed loudly, and her formerly brown scythe turned blood red for a short while when she took it and then changed back. But there was a dark chakra coming from it now. "Now I'll punish the rats that thought they could go against God Jashin!" she declared, and vines shot out from the ground again and chased the flying squad. Thankfully that was the time when the second part of the team led by Naruto's shadow clone arrived. It forced them to split their attention into 2 directions and the fight was on. The group of 8 ANBU split into their 2 normal teams of 4 and each took on one of the Jashinists. Jutsus of all elements, both in solo form and combinations, were used by the ANBU to corral the Jashinists away from each other, but they were good, especially as Mala could use her control over the vines to intercept attacks on her or even Haydn. And Haydn was devilishly fast. Not to mention that he had perfected his fighting style that built up on the fact that he was unkillable. He also knew that if he just got a drop of blood from any of the ANBU, he could take that one out of the fight quickly. But the ANBU weren't the elite for nothing. While Mantis was nicked in the shoulder by Haydn and he took in his blood, the others prevented that he could use his jutsu, which seemingly demanded him to stand inside the circle he had drawn from his own blood in the middle of the fight. It became clear that one of the ANBU was Inara, when he connected his shadow to Haydn's and forced him to leave the circle and drop his scythe. Haydn cursed the man colorfully, but it didn't help him anything. The other ANBU used the chance that Cheetah had given them to land some very powerful jutsus, but sadly it didn't do much to Haydn, as Cheetah had to let the jutsu go to not get hit by the backlash. "What do we have to do to bring him down?" Cheetah growled after having caught him for the second time. This time had been much harder to achieve, as Haydn was looking out for the shadows more. "I suggest cutting him apart into little bits to prevent that he can attack again," Naruto called from above. That might just work," Badger agreed, "but who has a jutsu that can accomplish it quickly to not waste Cheetah's shadow possession jutsu?" I doubt we would manage to catch him a third time. Leave that to me, Naruto replied and flew down and put a number of seals onto Haiden's body and one onto the ground between his feet. I suggest you get a bit away, as this will be messy. The Anbu nodded and stepped back. You won't be able to defeat me. God Jashin will make me the winner, stupid tree huggers. Haiden cursed. Fuinjutsu, Antlion Trap and Wind Sword seals activate, Naruto stated while closing two-hand seal, which triggered both seals. First, the tag under Haiden's feet created a hole in the ground, which had fine sand rolling downwards, preventing that you could simply run upwards to escape the trap. Then the other seals cut the spot they were placed on with a sharp sword made of wind. Wow, I never thought you could create seals that imitate A-rank jutsus, Cheetah said very impressed. Nothing is impossible with the right level of knowledge in Fuinjutsu, Naruto replied. Down in the trap, Haiden was cursing up a storm, insulting the Konoha group, and promising them a very painful death, as soon as he was out of there. It's scary to think that he could survive being cut apart like that, Mantis commented, watching the spectacle. And how are we getting him out to take him into a secure spot where he can't escape? I can place a shell of earth around him that we can take with us to Konoha in a normal storage scroll, Badger informed the other ANBU, though it would probably best if we put some chakra suppression seals into the prison before that. Just to make sure. This guy is really a freak. The others agreed and left Haiden under watch of Cheetah to assist the other group with Mala, if they hadn't finished their fight yet. Though the lack of sound suggested that they had managed as well. Thankfully it was like they had suspected. Tiger had restrained Mala with wood, and she was cursing them all out for interfering in her holy mission for God Jashin. I see you're done as well. How did the fight go? Dove asked. Very hard, he's a slippery opponent. But we managed to trap him and he's currently guarded by Cheetah in an Antlion trap that Dark Phoenix set up, Mantis answered. Dark Phoenix also placed seals that imitate the effect of a wind sword on several places on his body after Cheetah managed to catch him in his jutsu for the second time. The first time we hit him with some of our best jutsus, but he got back up again and gave us trouble again. His healing factor for any kind of physical wound that only injures his body is really annoying. I see. Well, we need to make sure that their plans never come to pass. I would say, do the same to Mala and then we take them to Konoha and storage scrolls to let the Hokage decide what to do about them. But first, Dark Phoenix, poison her like disgust, Dove ordered Badger. I also want you to hit her womb with your gentle fist. We are not taking any risk of her being able to become pregnant anytime soon. No! Don't you dare! I will bear the human form of God Jashin. Mala screeched, before Tiger let some wood cover her mouth. Naruto stepped forward and unsealed a vial with a strong poison that corroded any kind of flesh it got in contact with. He put it into a syringe and injected it directly into the womb area of her body, where Tiger shifted his wood a little to the side to allow Naruto and Badger access. Once Naruto was done, Badger targeted specific spots and destroyed any kind of vital organ for reproduction with his chakra strikes. Then Mala was given the same treatment as Haiden and sealed up into a prisoner scroll. We were lucky to get to them just in time. Good work, team. Let's get Haiden's pieces sealed up as well and then give these poor people a decent burial, Dove told the group and they confirmed. It was 5 hours later that they were back in Konoha. Naruto had given another ruse with a shadow clone to use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to get the group back to Konoha, and now Dove had just reported back to Kakashi. I see, good work, teams. Leave the secured parts of Haiden and Mala with Ibiki to see if he can get some information out of them. Yenbi, you are dismissed. Dark Phoenix, stay, Kakashi ordered, and they all followed. Kakashi then proceeded to set up privacy seals to talk to his student undisturbed. How are you? Kakashi asked. Glad that it is over and a bit exhausted, Sensei, Naruto answered honestly. You will be taking off the next 2 weeks and are banned from training for the next 3 days. You really need to have some real downtime, Naruto, Kakashi said sternly. I also suggest looking into spending some time with your comrades that are on leave as well. Hinata and Sakura have training at the hospital for the next month, and are not going to take mission as long as there isn't any need for medics. Tsunade asked to have the most promising candidates kept in the village for that time, and I granted it, as we have covered enough of the built-up missions to have a little breathing space. Not to mention that Danzo sent us a number of Chunin-level root agents to fill some empty spots. I didn't think he would do so. He likes to keep them in reserve and hidden away, Naruto commented. He wants to see the village rise to the undisputed top more than anything, and right now that needs manpower to appear strong to any kind of opponent. Letting a few root agents take normal missions will help with that, even if they mostly take border patrol missions, to free up the ones that can be allowed to be in contact with clients, Kakashi explained. Yes, I can see how they would have problems with that. Danzo really overdoes it with his conditioning, Naruto nodded. Who else is in the village right now? Choji, Ino and Kiba have just come back 3 days ago from a C-rank mission with Sasuke leading the team, and I plan giving them the next one the day after tomorrow. Sasuke has gone on to the next mission this morning. Shikamaru will be here until tomorrow morning and Shino is away with the Chunin team, Kakashi answered. Okay, I'll see if I can at least get something to eat with some of them, Naruto agreed, thinking that catching up on the missions they had would be a good idea. Once you are done with your leave, which I definitely won't cut short again, I want you to give a short seminar about sealing basics at the academy. We need more ninjas that at least understand the basics of Fuinjutsu, even if it is just recognizing the kind of seal they come across and making storage scrolls. And I think we could find some talented students that will be put into a program similar to Tsunade's medic program, Kakashi told Naruto. Not a bad idea, sensei. Well, I'll be off. I really need a shower and something to eat, Naruto commented and left, concentrating on one of his kunais, which was placed in his secret home. He wouldn't give up that safety for the world. When Naruto was done showering, he pondered who he would like to hang out with. While Sakura was his teammate, he didn't really like her enough to spend his free time with her or Sasuke, if it wasn't for something that others had arranged. Hinata, well, he didn't know how to react to her behavior. He knew she liked him in some way, but he wasn't sure if he wanted to support that by making her believe that he reciprocated. Well, he would see who he could find beforehand. If he got a number of others to agree to meet for dinner, he could simply tell her she was invited as well and it wouldn't give the girl ideas. As a friend and comrade she was nice enough, but he really couldn't see him being a good match for her. They were very different after all. Choji and Shikamaru were a good choice to hang out with. They had never shown any obvious dislike for him, even during the academy time, and even skipped classes with him from time to time, when he had played the idiot to deceive people. Ino and Kiba were still loud, but they had become better ever since the training of the 3 rookie teams had been increased. With Sasuke and Shino out on missions, that was the selection he had. While he knew Guy's team as well, he didn't really have any closer contact with them, and they would probably be out on a mission. An experienced genin team like theirs was currently given more missions, not to mention that the next Chunin exams would take place soon and they were going to enter again. Guy hadn't been too disappointed that his team hadn't managed to get into the finals. It was just bad luck. Instead, he motivated them to train even harder to have better abilities and speed next time the exams came around, and he was sure that they would have their chance to excel then. As far as Naruto had found out, the exams would be held in Kumo, which had taken over the exams from Suna, which had been banned from holding them for the next 2 years. While they had been tricked by Orochimaru, there had to be repercussions for attacking a supposed ally, and Konoha still had Gaara and Temari in custody, while Kankuro had been let go, as a sign of goodwill, after Suna had sent the first delivery of Jutsu scrolls that were part of the agreement that Konoha had set up with Suna to let them pay off their debts from the invasion. In the end, once Suna had met all the demands for their actions, Gaara, whose seal had been greatly improved to prevent him going on an uncontrolled rampage and who had been forced to attend counseling, not to mention that Naruto gave him a piece of his mind, which, coming from another Jinchuriki, actually stuck better, would be sent back. It had been discussed to extract the Ichibi from Gaara, but in the end nobody wanted to have that crazy monster influencing one of Konoha's shinobi. Jiraiya had managed to convince the council that influencing Gaara to think favorably of Konoha for helping him when Suna never even tried would in the long run be more beneficial for them than burdening a poor child with a demon that was known to cause mental instability in its container. Kakashi agreed with Jiraiya, as he knew too well that it was a miracle that Naruto hadn't gone down the road Gaara had gone. Even if there was the occasional civilian that didn't want to understand and which Naruto beat up when he was attacked, Tsunade really didn't have any pity for them, and only told them that they were stupid attacking a ninja and that they had to deal with the outcome. Thankfully most people were smart enough to not voice their opinion anymore and leave Naruto be. Naruto didn't care for them at all and showed it when somebody tried to mouth off with him. Temari meanwhile would be kept hostage in Konoha for at least the next 5 years, depending on the behavior of Suna. As a daughter of the 4th Kazekage and one of the best wind users in Suna, she was a valuable one and a good insurance that at least her brothers would behave. And as distasteful as it might be, a political hostage of a strong bloodline could always be used to be married into one of the clans to give that clan powerful offspring. And so far Temari was more or less resigned to her fate, knowing that she and her brothers could have as well been executed for their participation in the invasion. Konoha would have had every right to do that. In the end Naruto decided to go and start with Shikamaru and Choji, and then see if others also wanted to hang out for dinner. Naruto's question to Shikamaru and Choji was overheard by Ino, who was delivering a package from her mother to Shikamaru's mother, and therefore she was invited as well, which led to all the ones from their class that weren't out on missions being gathered at Choji's favorite barbecue place. They had a fun evening, talking about missions, training, interesting people they had met and their families while roasting pieces of meat or vegetables on the grill. Some of the others had got missions where they needed to repair houses inside the village and talked about how much work it was. None of them liked to think how much worse things could have been hadn't they known beforehand what would come. Naruto enjoyed the easy atmosphere, even if he stayed on guard. It was simply part of his personality. You didn't simply change after having to rely on these abilities your whole life. Then the conversation switched to a new program that they had heard about, one that had specialists of a field hold seminars at the academy for the students with the goal to spot talented students early on to teach them more in that field. I know about that one, Naruto said, and all eyes turned towards him. I'm part of the group that will teach, my field being Fuinjutsu. Makes sense, you're one of the few seal masters in the village and Jiraiya is constantly out maintaining his spy network and I doubt they will let Dark Phoenix teach. Shikamaru nodded. I still can't believe that you and Hinata got to go on a mission with that mysterious person, Ino commented. Well, I got the impression that he's a normal guy, Shikamaru replied, highly skilled and very intelligent for sure, but not too different to any other ninja. I thought the same. He treated us like all other higher-ranked ninjas that I worked with since my promotion to Chunin did. Professionally, but a bit distanced, Hinata agreed. The biggest surprise was probably that he was younger than I assumed. I would guess he's perhaps 1 or 2 years older than us at most, Shikamaru stated. Naruto, do you know who he is? Sakura asked. I mean, you did some work together with him. No, I'm not privy to S-rank secrets in general. Naruto shook his head, which was true, as a special jonin his clearance was officially B-rank secrets and A-rank pertaining to certain missions, outside of the Kyuubi of course, and everybody outside of Konoha would pay a fortune to find out the identity of our new seal supplier. While I help out with that as well, ever since Jiraiya-sama confirmed my mastery, it would hit the village hard if our main seal master was taken out. That's true. The new seals have made success rates of the missions Konoha took since Dark Phoenix took over the job rise a distinct margin. Sakura nodded. Tsunade-sensei has told me how the seals help the teams to have an easier time to get the missions done, with less losses and injuries as well. If people like Orochimaru got that information, they would stop at nothing either to capture him and force him to work for them, or kill him to deprive Konoha of that resource. The others nodded. Thanks to their intensive training since they had graduated, they had learned that the less people knew a secret, the better it was kept. Especially in the ninja world. Something like this would only be known to the highest-ranking ninjas in the village, the Hokage, his advisors, probably Lord Jiraiya and a select few others. Which other areas will be part of the seminar program? Choji asked, bringing the topic back to that. Well, there's of course the already initiated medic program under the leadership of Tsunade-sensei, Sakura answered. Then I think weapons outside of kunai and shuriken will be taught and a class on tracking. The last one is correct. My older sister Hana told Mum about her being asked to teach it. Kiba threw in. She also mentioned that a friend of hers that is specialized in infiltration will hold a seminar on that as well. Definitely a much better curriculum than what we went through, Naruto commented. I still can't believe how far behind we were when we started out. Those first months under Kakashi-sensei were hell on earth. Sakura shook her head. I should never have listened to the rubbish my mom told me about being a ninja. I wasted so much time, and I'm ever so glad that Kakashi-sensei cured me of the stupid dieting idea before I got to train under Tsunade-sensei. The way she laid into the beginner class and medical jutsus for thinking that dieting at their age was a good idea. She shuddered at the memory. You're right, Sakura, I felt pity for the girls. But they will never get that idea again. Hinata nodded. No, they would have to have a death wish, Sakura agreed. What did Lady Tsunade do? Ino asked curiously, as she hadn't gone into the medical program like the other two girls, as she wanted to specialize in poisons, which was only a small part of the knowledge covered in the program. First she destroyed a thick desk with her fists when half the class raised their hands when asked if they were dieting. Then she let us all assemble out on the grounds behind the medical training center and started bombarding everybody with exploding lead balls. While throwing the balls at incredible speed, she gave a lecture on how those on a diet were too weak to even dodge a large object like the balls, and that if they ever wanted to have a good-looking body like her and Shizen, they'd better stop the idiocy at once, or she would spar with them in person. Needless to say that I never was as grateful for Kakashi-sensei's lessons on dodging at the beginning of our training as at that time, Sakura reported. We had to avoid the balls for 15 minutes on end, all 20 students in our class at once. It was a disaster. The dieting girls were on the ground before 5 minutes were over and Tsunade-sensei kept throwing the balls. About 3/4 of our class needed medical treatment afterwards, and the ones that had got away lightly got to work on practical examples. While the explosions were only low-level ones, and mostly release paint, it was still very effective in teaching the ones that didn't have as hard training as we did what they quickly needed to do, Hinata added. And really, Kurenai-sensei's physical training prepared me well enough for the level Tsunade-sensei started out with. They really have neglected their training. And the academy students are in a different class than we are, meaning they don't have the excuse of being used to lesser training than a genin. The others nodded. It was clear that things were changing rapidly in Konoha and they all considered it an improvement to before. Chapter 43, Royal Visitors. It was strange, Naruto decided, to be back at the academy as somebody that would teach a class. His time off had been quite relaxing and he had decided to actually do nothing in concerns of training for a whole week. He had gone to the movies, spent time at a lake, going swimming, cooking over a campfire and watching the stars at night. It had been really peaceful. Many of his old classmates had gone on one mission or the other during that time, and he had occasionally spent some time with those that were at the village. The second week he had started setting up his lesson plans and continued his training, as there were still more jutsus that he was interested in learning. Currently he was working on a water jutsu that allowed the user to cover the victim in a cocoon of water that then drained the prisoner of his chakra. A great jutsu to capture targets alive. It was based on the water prison jutsu, but more complicated and higher ranked. Where the water prison jutsu was a B-rank jutsu, the water cocoon jutsu was an A-rank jutsu. He spent 3 hours each day working out the mechanics behind the jutsu, and he was coming close to mastering it. Shadow clones were incredibly useful for jutsu training after all. When he had been a student at the academy, he had dumbed down his abilities to not be sabotaged by the civilian council. Things had changed for the better since then, but he still didn't trust them as far as he could throw them. He knew that if they saw a chance to regain some of their former influence, they would take it immediately, and they hated him with a passion, no matter his heritage. They saw him as the reason why they had lost their previous influence in the village. None of them acknowledged that they hadn't ever had a right to wield the power they had, but like always, if somebody got power, he tried as hard as possible to not lose the power again. Now, as a special jonin, he had worked for the respect he got. His classmates knew about his true level and trusted him to lead them on missions properly. His opinion was valued in discussions about how a mission could be fulfilled efficiently, and the higher-ups in the military supported him in his wish to grow stronger. It helped that his jonin sensei had become the new Hokage and the village flourished under Kakashi's rule. He stood in front of the class, which hadn't noticed him yet. He had used a camouflage seal on the sleeve of his shirt to blend in with his surroundings. It was fun to see how the children were discussing the new specialist lessons and wondered which one they would have today, and who the teacher would be. Naruto had decided to let his prankster persona out again, and had trapped the chairs in each row with sticky glitter bomb seals. The most atrocious colors he could find at that. From neon pink to shocking orange. It should get the children's attention fairly quickly. He made the snake seal and activated the tags, which caused the children to scream and the glitter fall down everywhere, sticking to anybody it hit, which was the whole class, as none of them had been prepared for something like this. Naruto deactivated the camouflage seal and phased into view when the children tried to get rid of the glitter. It was good for 2 lessons. Well, I'm a little disappointed that you didn't even try to check for traps inside the classroom. Lesson number 1. A ninja is always prepared for the unexpected. Lesson number 2. Never underestimate what a creative mind can do with Fuinjutsu. Naruto spoke loudly, making the children all turn towards him, the only person in the classroom to not be covered in sticky glitter. I'm Naruto Namikaze. For the duration of this specialist lessons, you will call me Naruto-sensei, he announced, suppressing a grin at seeing the mix of awe and outrage on the faces of his new students. Now take a seat, then I will give you an overview what we will work on during these lessons, Naruto announced. What about that stupid glitter? One girl asked angrily. That will stay as a reminder that you need to have more situational awareness at all times. You could have prevented the full blast with a simple substitution after all, which I know you all have learned already, Naruto easily answered. We live in a dangerous world, you have experienced it not that long ago, when Konoha was attacked by Suna and Oto. We thankfully knew ahead of time that it would come and prepared, which allowed us to limit the losses. Enemies won't refrain from attacking our village, if they think they will gain something by doing so. And you, who study to become ninjas, need to know how to deal with that. You were part of the forces that defeated the enemy, right? My dad said you had mastered your father's most famous jutsu, a girl half asked, half stated. That's true, Naruto answered and vanished from his spot, only to appear behind the class, the Flying Thunder God Jutsu that was originally developed by the second Hokage, and which my father, the fourth Hokage, then took to new heights. The children looked in awe at the execution of the famous jutsu right in front of them. The Flying Thunder God Jutsu is a masterpiece of space-time ninjutsu combined with Fuinjutsu. Wherever I leave my marker, I can teleport to in a split second. I never knew that it was also Fuinjutsu, a boy exclaimed. Will we learn that too? No, it's too advanced. What I'm going to teach you are the basics of Fuinjutsu to see if some of you show talent in the art. It takes time to study this, as it is complicated. The difficulty is comparable with medical jutsu. You can teach anybody first aid, which is using and recognizing Fuinjutsu for that area. Common seals include explosive tags, light bombs, paralysis seals, and storage seals. Any ninja needs to know how to use the basic seals and how to distinguish between them, Naruto lectured. Medical jutsu needs high levels of chakra control and knowledge of how the boy works. Fuinjutsu needs high levels of calligraphy and memorization of how to build up a seal. With learning the basics, you will be able to make your own storage scrolls, explosive tags of low power, and privacy seals to make sure you can't be overheard. Comparable how a medic first needs to learn the mystical palm jutsu before he or she is allowed to work on the higher level things like treating deep flesh wounds and the like. It is all building up from zero and concentrating to not make mistakes. It can cost lives in both cases, Naruto warned. The children listened closely. Naruto returned to his spot in front of the class. We will start today with looking at storage seals. They are the most commonly used seals in the ninja world. Be it to carry large amounts of supplies in a single scroll or to hide a special thing you have on your person. New orders for bases outside of Konoha are also transported in storage scrolls that are keyed to the chakra signature of the commanding ninja of a base to prevent that information falls into enemy hands, Naruto explained, and then started to write a few things onto the blackboard. This is a simple array, which you will work on first. It is a storage seal that can hold one item, like a shuriken or kunai. I will teach you how to create it, and then you will practice with normal pens and paper at first. The ones that I clear for attempting it for real after 3 successful tries will get special chakra conductive ink to write out the real seal. For this, it doesn't matter how fast you work, but how precise. Fuinjutsu can be dangerous if you make a mistake in the setup. With a storage scroll it won't matter, it just won't work, but imagine if you messed up an exploding tag. That could cost you and others their lives. Not something we want to happen, so never mess around with this art, Naruto warned and got serious nods. Then he started explaining how to build up a seal from the inside to the outside. The children paid attention, and then Naruto handed out the utensils to practice, while having 3 shadow clones assist in helping the children to draw the seal correctly. The glitter stayed on the whole class, and only at the end Naruto told them that it would come down when they took a shower, and to not be caught off guard the next time like they were this time. And to not expect him to use the same trap twice. Naruto spent 2 days of the week teaching at the academy. The other days he normally took short missions, leading Team 10 while they did D ranks or short C ranks. Asuma was still mostly busy with A rank missions, so he couldn't take care of the 3 genin as much as he would have liked. He had left all of them scrolls with things he wanted them to work on while he was gone, and all 3 got training from their clans, so it wasn't too bad. They wanted to improve after all to get their promotion during the next Chunin exams. When the group stood inside the Hokage's office for a new mission, Kakashi looked at them sternly. This mission, while not overly difficult on paper, is a B rank. You are to escort the daughter of the new daimyo of Wave Country around Konoha while her father meets with the Fire Country daimyo and the Wind Country daimyo. The negotiations will be tense, I expect, and we have to make sure that the princess isn't harmed while she stays in Konoha. Ino, you will stay with the girl the whole day, while Choji and Kiba work as guards mostly. The reason why I chose your team is that the princess is 12 years old, meaning close to your own age, Kakashi explained. Of course, Hokage-sama, the 3 genin nodded. Naruto, you are in charge, and I might want to warn you that the girl could behave a little like a fangirl, thanks to your part in freeing Wave Country. You are seen as a hero by the people of Wave County, Kakashi pointed out. Don't worry, sensei, I can deal with fangirls, Naruto assured him. I hope so, as you can't simply leave her standing in the dust like you normally do with the fangirls that you got after people found out that you were Minato-sensei's son, Kakashi commented. I did have to endure etiquette training under Tsunade, as you refused to believe me that I wouldn't embarrass myself when we had that mission to Bird Country. I know what I am allowed to do and not do while dealing with nobles. And it won't be longer than for the meeting, Naruto replied. Good. You will meet the girl in 20 minutes. She will be accompanied by a lady of the court in Wave Country, which is acting as a chaperone to the princess. The ANBU are keeping watch all over the city and will assist should anything happen. You will just keep the princess safe and happy. Show her some nice places, like where to shop for nice clothes, go and eat something, things like that. Ino will probably have a few ideas where to take her, Kakashi said. Sure thing, Hokage-sama. I have a number of places that should be interesting for a girl to see that has never been to Konoha before, Ino agreed. Then you can wait for her in the client lounge, Kakashi told the team. He was curious how Naruto would deal with a fangirl he couldn't simply ditch. It would certainly be entertaining. The team waited in the lounge that was set up to give clients a place to wait for the teams that were assigned to the missions they had requested from Konoha. It was a comfortable, but not luxurious place. The village was after all a military-led place, and not the daimyo's palace. If negotiations were held in Konoha for the added protection that the ninjas could give, the nobles had to contend with what could be provided. There were after all high-class hotels with luxurious meeting places to choose from. The Hokage Tower was just for placing missions and meeting the teams. At the announced time the door was opened and a stern-looking gray-haired woman entered. I assume you are the team that will be escorting Princess Natsuki around, she stated. Indeed, ma'am, Naruto took charge. These three are Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akimichi and Kiba Inuzuka, all three genin. My name is Naruto Namikaze, Special Jonin and in command over the team for this mission. Really? They sent the savior of Wave Country to lead the team? Another female voice asked excitedly and a figure pushed past the older woman. It's really him. She squealed, Hi, I'm Natsuki, the princess of Wave Country. Oh, I wanted to meet you so much, Naruto-sama. I'm such a fan ever since you and your team freed Wave Country. Tazuna told my father and his court everything how you freed us from the criminal Gato. Can I have an autograph, please, please, please? Ino, Choji and Kiba were shocked at the behavior that the girl showed. She was smaller than them by half a head, had long black hair, which was cut in a typical Heim style with two long bangs framing her face, and wore an expensive red and white kimono. But she behaved like the worst of Sasuke's fangirls at the academy, according to Kiba's and Choji's thoughts. Princess Natsuki. This behavior is totally unacceptable. The woman reprimanded angrily. But Lady Shiori, this is Naruto Namikaze. Natsuki protested. You are a princess, not a peasant. You have to uphold your duties that come with the position, the woman insisted, and that means following protocol. But the protocol is stiff and boring. And anyway, these aren't stuffy nobles like the ones that always try to gain favors with father. Ever since he took over ruling Wave Country from grandfather, these are ninjas that are trained to fight and defeat evil tyrants like Gato. I doubt that they care about protocol, Natsuki insisted, crossing her arms over her chest. The three genin looked at each other, trying to figure out if they should step in or not. Finally, Ino decided to break the glaring contest up. Well, how about we get started with the tour of Konoha? We can have a look around first, and you can decide which places you want to see in more detail, she suggested. Okay, but can we first stop at the hotel to get something easier to wear? I couldn't convince Lady Shiori that this outfit wouldn't be more of a hindrance than proper attire. But if we walk around the village for some time, it wouldn't be easy to move around easily, Natsuki asked. You will not put on those clothes. They are beneath your station. Lady Shiori insisted, and a princess shouldn't walk around with the common people like that. We will need a carriage or something else appropriate to take the tour. Lady Shiori, there aren't any carriages in Konoha that could be used for this. We don't have any nobles living here all year round, therefore people mostly walk to the places where they want to go. And I doubt that you would allow any of us to carry you and Princess Natsuki around, as it would be improper behavior, Naruto calmly addressed the chaperone. Now really, I have never experienced such a place. No large settlement should lack basic transportation ways for the nobility. She shook her head in displeasure, and of course it is out of the question for any of you to carry the princess. She is a royal after all, and only her family and future husband are allowed to have any kind of close contact outside of formal greetings. Then we will have to make sure that nothing too inappropriate happens. I think Princess Natsuki had a good idea by changing into something more practical. It would also serve as a better disguise to not have anybody attempt anything to harm her or use her as leverage against her father. While Wave Country is still dealing with the aftermath of the crimes of Gato, the daughter of a daimyo is always a primary target for unsavory objects, Naruto pointed out. I guess you are right. I didn't see it from that point of view. It still isn't appropriate, and I only agree under security concerns, she sniffed. Then it is decided. We will go to the hotel, Princess Natsuki and Ino can find an outfit that will let the princess move around easier without being recognized as a princess at once, and then we can show you the village. While you won't have all the comfort you may be used to, I know a few very beautiful spots that I think you will like, Naruto stated. What kind of places? Natsuki asked curiously. Just wait and see, princess, it is a surprise, Naruto answered, to which Natsuki squealed. She pulled Ino with her to get her outfit chosen quickly to enjoy the day with her idol. Kiba and Choji looked at each other. And we have to deal with that for the next 2 days all the time? Kiba asked. Yeah, but at least we have one advantage. We aren't her target, Choji commented, per Naruto. Per Naruto? He gets that hot chick hanging off his arm, when he already has an army of fangirls. Why do some guys get all the luck? Kiba complained. Choji shook his head. Kiba really had no idea what he was talking about. Ino was quick to find a nice outfit for Natsuki among her large collection of clothes that she had taken with her to Konoha. She now wore a violet skirt that went down to her lower legs, but was swishy, and a nice, short-sleeved pink shirt in Chinese style. Very nice. Well, shall we go, Princess Natsuki? Ino asked kindly. Oh yes. I want to see so many things. I managed to get Tazuna to tell me more about how Konoha looks like when he reported about the success of the mission to Konoha and how Naruto-sama's team saved our country. And especially the huge part that Naruto-sama played in the whole mission. Natsuki nodded enthusiastically. I heard about it from my friend Sakura Haruno. She was on the team as well. It was really bad when Gato was still alive, wasn't it? Ino asked. Yes, very bad, Natsuki nodded, looking sad. We lived in fear of what he would do next. We didn't realize his plans at first, and appreciated the idea of him bringing more business to our country. You see, Wave Country isn't rich. We have some fishermen, some shipping industry, and farms that produce the goods that are sold in the shops and the villages on the island. Contrary to other countries, we don't possess mines or the like that would give us valuable goods that we could export. At first it worked well, with Gato Corporation bringing more money into the country. But he only needed half a year to have the whole shipping industry under his control, and as an island nation, we depend on shipping. He could cut us off from the mainland and install his regime of terror. My grandfather couldn't do anything. While he was the daimyo, he at least managed to mainly put the target on himself, and not so much my father. Still, he abdicated in father's favor after the crisis was over, wanting the country to have a fresh start. And father isn't as rich as, for example, the daimyo of Fire Country. He doesn't have as many soldiers as other countries have them to protect the country and the royal family equally. I was forbidden to leave the palace during the whole time. I wish that we could have helped the poor people that had to deal with the brunt of Gato's crimes, but it was too dangerous. He would have killed all of us and probably planned to do so once he had crushed the last resistance. It is still hard to take in that 4 people, 3 of them only a little older than me, could free a whole country that was oppressed by 1,000 thugs under Gato's command, Natsuki explained. Yes, that would be scary. While a thug isn't really a problem for a trained ninja, these numbers would overwhelm a normal team quickly. But there is a reason why Kakashi Hatake was chosen as the 5th Hokage after all. He is the best ninja we have in the village, and he had trained his students to be much stronger than normal rookie genin were. We found it out very quickly, even if at first only Naruto and Sasuke were that outstanding. Sakura at first was actually weak. But she trained hard and worked her way up. I can't believe that she was promoted to Chunin before me. And that Naruto is already special Jonin, Ino said. Well, with how he defeated hundreds of the thugs and then the ninjas that tried to get the bridge builder Tazuna on top, it was to be expected that he would be promoted quickly, Natsuki spoke with conviction. Ino could only nod, and then they reached the rest of the group. Lady Shiori didn't look pleased with the choice of clothes of the princess. Princess, this is not appropriate for a person of your station to wear, she protested. It is actually very conservative for an outfit worn in Konoha. She won't stand out negatively, and I doubt anybody will look at her in indecent ways, Naruto countered. I think we should start with the tour, so that you can get to see a good number of things today before we go and find a nice place to eat lunch. Oh yes, I want to see the Hokage Monument, how one of the training grounds looks like, and of course the Senju tree, Natsuki voiced eagerly. We can do that, Your Highness, Naruto agreed, not seeing a problem with that. Natsuki nodded happily and grabbed Naruto's arm, wanting to be escorted around by him. Thankfully, for Naruto's sanity, Ino took to pointing out interesting spots and basically took the role of tour guide for the princess and her chaperone. It was very clear that Lady Shiori didn't like Natsuki's behavior towards Naruto at all, but she kept it to annoyed looks for the time being. Naruto kept his promise and showed Natsuki 2 very beautiful places. One was a waterfall on Training Ground 29, which was rarely used, but Naruto had found it during his exploring of the village. There was a small lake at the foot of the waterfall, and a number of colorful flowers grew at the shores, next to water lilies softly swaying on the top of the water. The only sounds to be heard was the water falling onto the top of the lake's surface, and some birds singing in the trees. Oh wow, it's truly beautiful, Natsuki breathed out. I have to agree. I didn't know that there was a place like this in the village. And on a training ground on top, Ino agreed. It doesn't look as if it is used much, Kiba observed. Do you know why that is, Naruto? You need Jonin level clearance to come here. Not because of danger, which is why Training Ground 44 is fenced off, but because there are rare plants and animals living around here. The medical corps has found that the soil on this training ground is special and suited to grow a number of rare medical herbs. This front area is actually the only part that can be entered if you aren't keyed into the seals that protect the training ground. As a special Jonin, I can take people up to the waterfall, but no farther, Naruto explained. So it is only a training ground by name, Choji observed. Correct. It is kept as a training ground so that no civilian can try to make a profit with the plants that are grown around here. They have tried to get it relabeled in the past, but failed, as all training grounds that are determined as at once need the permission of the Hokage to change the classification. And the Hokages, ever since the third generation, have cited that this is a training ground for the medical corps, meaning nobody has a right to say otherwise, Naruto explained. I bet since Lady Tsunade returned they have an even harder time trying, Ino joked. Definitely. Tsunade is scary when she wants something. Kakashi-sensei is lucky that they share their opinions on how the village should develop in the future. Otherwise it would be much harder for him to get her cooperation with how she transforms the hospital and medical training program. Naruto nodded. Can we go a little closer to the lake? Natsuki asked. No, the barrier is 1 meter in front of us, Naruto answered, surprising the others. I can't feel anything. How can you know? Kiba asked. Uzumaki blood, Naruto replied. Yes, you were known as Naruto Uzumaki when you were in Wave Country before your true heritage was revealed. Lady Shirori nodded, remembering the briefing she got before coming to Konoha. So your clan was good at sensing things like this barrier? The Uzumaki clan specialized in Fuinjutsu, sealing, of any kind, Naruto answered. I'm one of a few seal masters that live in Konoha. I heard that you equipped the bridge with seals to make it last longer, Natsuki commented. That's true. I wanted to make sure that even after Gato was gone, nobody would try to take up his place and endanger the bridge. With enough explosives it would have been easy to destroy it otherwise, Naruto nodded. That must have been a huge task. I mean, how many kilometers is that bridge long? Kiba asked. About 50, give or take a few, Natsuki answered, proudly. That long. Damn, you have to have drawn seals for ages to cover that much space, Choji calculated. The wonders of shadow clones, Naruto stated. Otherwise you would probably have needed many months, Ino agreed. How about we go and take a look at the shopping district? There are some wonderful places I want to show you. And we can find a nice restaurant for a snack as well. Sounds like a good idea, Natsuki agreed, still insisting that Naruto accompanied her, holding her arm. Naruto was very glad when he could leave Natsuki with her father after the tour of the village. He had kept a tight hold over his emotions, but right now he needed to lose some steam. While Natsuki wasn't as bad as other noble daughters, she was exhausting in her own right, especially as she didn't let go of him all day, except when Ino dragged her off to try on different kinds of clothes, which Natsuki enthusiastically took to, no matter if Lady Shirori protested, again. It was a much-needed, very welcome break, and he wasn't comfortable with prolonged physical contact. While Natsuki didn't pose a danger, he didn't like people invading his private space. He had had a number of bad experiences in his childhood that made him wary of that kind of contact. The team was dismissed for the evening, and would return in the morning. The guard of the royal visitors was up to the ANBU during the night. It couldn't be expected that a genin team worked as protection for a daimyo and his entourage. The only reason why the team had got the B-rank mission was that it was more for the sake of entertaining Princess Natsuki during the day, while her father went to the important business meetings. The actual protection during the day had also been performed by the NBU, but as there was some small risk factor included that could have involved the team, it was labeled as a B rank, instead of the normal C rank it would have been otherwise. He himself went to the nearest training ground and went through a long number of taijutsu katas to get back to balance. It was a good thing that the mission would be over tomorrow evening. Otherwise he would need to work and some time to meditate. This really wasn't easy, no matter what kind of training he had received. But it was important for his growth as a shinobi and a person that he learned to deal with common things like these. He was a Hokage's son, which made him a type of nobility as well. It was expected of him to be able to move among people like nobles and princesses. But without growing up in a clan, or even with parents, he had never really learned much about social norms, never experienced how people interacted normally. He had lived around them, not among them. And he needed time to actually learn the things that others took for granted growing up. His sensei knew and understood that problem and made a point to have Tsunade teach him things he should have been taught growing up. It wasn't easy, but he was progressing. Slowly, but surely, he would manage. But no matter what he had told his sensei about being able to deal with a fangirl, it took a lot of patience and control to not follow his first instinct to escape her grip. He had signed the autograph at the end of the day, hoping it would make her easier to deal with. It was a good thing she didn't live close by. It was harder to deny a princess something, simply because it would be bad for the business of the village, than normal fangirls. This was one point he could sympathize with Sasuke about. Even if he didn't like the jerk's behavior while they were at the academy. Chapter 44, Incident. The next morning came too early for Naruto. Still, he had a mission to fulfill and he didn't plan to fail at this. He put on his normal mission gear and went to check with the team. Choji and Kiba had taken the other night shifts of watching the princess. Naruto himself had had the first one, while Ino had been inside the suite in a room next to the princess's one. Thankfully nothing had happened. He would have been surprised if it did, as the ANBU were watching for any outside threats as well as intruders that got too close to their royal visitors. The team got back together and today the chaperone was resigned to letting the princess wear an outfit in which she could move easily, but still look nice in. It was a pale blue short yukata on top of a darker blue shirt with black leggings with flat-heeled black boots. It was one of the outfits Ino had helped her choose the day before. Today they planned to show the princess the look from the top of the Hokage monument, as she had asked to be taken up there. Naruto had cleared the request with his sensei and got the permission, with the assurance that the ANBU would be ready to act in case somebody used the opportunity to attack while there wasn't really much cover. They went down to breakfast, where the princess insisted that her guards got to eat as well. Lady Shiori protested, but the princess in the end won. Thankfully they got to leave after 20 minutes, as Princess Natsuki was eager to make most out of her last day in Konoha. Again she latched onto Naruto's arm, who had prepared mentally for this and hid his true emotions. The trip up to the monument took 2 hours, as they had to go at civilian speed, and especially Lady Shiori wasn't suited for hiking. She complained a lot about not getting a carriage to take them up there, and it not being appropriate for a noble to have to do this. Princess Natsuki thought it a great adventure, even if nothing really happened. Ino had made sure to pack some snacks and they stopped for a 15 minutes break after 1 hour of walking up the paths through the forest. There were different kinds of fruits that were easy to transport, bottles with tea and water, and some cookies. During the picnic, Ino distracted the princess with things girls liked talking about and Naruto could get a small reprieve from his close contact. He kept watch for anything that might be out of the norm, but things were peaceful. He could feel the presence of the ANBU. He had trained in sensing others for a long time after all, but not pinpoint their locations. The break had helped Lady Shiori regain some strength, and they continued their way. When they reached the top, Princess Natsuki wanted to watch the village laying at the bottom of the monument. They were currently behind a rail that kept anybody not a ninja or maintenance personnel away from the edge. The face of the 5th Hokage was still being built, and nobody wanted to cause any accidents with people that got too curious. The look from up here is beautiful, Natsuki raved. It certainly is, Lady Shiori agreed. Still, this village needs better transport facilities for the nobility. The ninjas ignored her complaints, by now being used to doing so. She was always complaining about one thing or the other. Ino, being the one that was the most outgoing, told their guests about the history of the monument, and Konoha in general, keeping it to commonly known facts. Lady Shiori approved of this, as it made the trip at least educational for the princess. She asked for some other things, like the things Konoha did next to ninja missions for earning money, and Ino, being taught about business by her mother, explained how civilians made their lives in a ninja village. Natsuki wanted to go closer to the edge to see better, but Naruto denied that, explaining that with the work on the 5th face being done right now, it was too dangerous. Natsuki didn't like being told no, but Naruto was firm on his refusal. And no amount of begging, attempted bribery, and fury changed anything about it. Lady Shiori also reprimanded Natsuki for her behavior, which had the princess grumbling about unfairness. A quick row between the two females later and they took to wandering the woods around for a while. Natsuki decided she wanted to play hide and seek, and Naruto agreed to let her play with Ino, Choji, and Kiba, as long as he stayed on guard duty. During the early afternoon, Ino showed Natsuki to a beauty salon, where the two girls got their hair styled, their nails made, and their skin given a beauty treatment. Naruto was all for the visit there, as it would distract Natsuki, who was much less easy to handle today than the day before. For 2 hours on end, he and the other two boys stayed outside, while Lady Shiori kept an eye on things inside. She was much happier about this kind of place than having to hike up a mountain. She read a magazine that the salon had lying on tables in the waiting corner, a cup of hot tea and some biscuits, making the waiting time more pleasant. "Anything noticeable, Kiba?" Naruto asked when he passed Kiba's spot. "Nothing, Naruto. Though there is this curious scent in the air. But that may come from the beauty salon. They do use different kinds of perfume after all," Kiba admitted. I want you to head inside and see if you can pinpoint the scent in there. If not, come back to report again. Then we will see if it has anything to do with our mission," Naruto decided, and Kiba nodded. He stayed, keeping watch, until Kiba and Akamaru returned. "It isn't anything on the inside," Kiba stated, not looking as relaxed as before. "Where did you notice the scent first?" Naruto asked. "Well, the first time was this morning at the hotel. The scent left when we went up the monument, but it returned when we were here at the salon. Not sure how long it has been around, though," Kiba answered. Naruto made 20 shadow clones to be on the safe side. "Take position and be prepared for anything. Also inform Choji that we are increasing to stage 3, Naruto told his clones, which disappeared to do their jobs. Well, he's as good as the rumors said. But that only makes this more interesting," a person hiding close to their position around the shop mumbled, making sure to follow the job she had to do today. This was an opportunity that wouldn't come as easily again after all. Naruto was tense for the remainder of the day, as Kiba constantly found the scent that he had noticed before. Naruto had his clones spread out to make sure that nothing could get them unprepared, and the ANBU had also been informed about a possible threat to the princess. They refrained from going to any places that were hard to defend after noticing, and instead Ino was informed to subtly stir their route to easily defendable places, which she did. They stayed inside of buildings to shop, eat, and see an exposition of an upcoming artist. When they were on the way back to the hotel, where their mission would end, Naruto's senses rang an alarm, and he threw a kunai at a suppressed chakra signature that didn't belong to the ANBU that were guarding them from a distance. A person jumped from the shadows, dodging the kunai, and a flash of light like from a flash tag broke out, which Naruto countered by switching to his other senses while keeping the eyes closed until the effect lessened. His clones were also on the move, but when he nailed the person with a punch, he got a surprise at how different that felt to a normal attacker. Not as strong as you would expect an assassin to be. He quickly had the person tied up. "Ow, really? That wasn't necessary," a female voice complained. "What were you doing following the princess around all day?" Naruto demanded to know. "Princess? I wasn't following the princess, Namikaze-sama. I was following you," the woman corrected. "Me?" Naruto asked suspiciously. "Of course. My readers want to know everything about you." She confirmed. "I'm Hikari Otabane, special correspondent for the Fire Glamour." "Oh, you're the famous reporter that shows the lives of famous people in Fire Country. We have a subscription on the magazine at the palace in Wave Country," Natsuki gushed. "I am. And this will be a perfect story. The famous Naruto Namikaze, previously hidden son of the infamous Yondaime Hokage, protecting a princess while important negotiations are taking place inside Konoha. That will be headlines for weeks," the reporter raved. "And why the hell didn't you inform anybody that you were trying to make a story about Naruto?" Kiba asked. "It wouldn't be authentic anymore. And Namikaze-sama is notoriously hard to find and follow, even for the best in our business. Having him out in the open for long periods of time is very rare. He's even worse in that regard than his sensei, the Godaime Hokage," Hikari explained. "I don't want to be bothered by the press," Naruto declared. "My private life is just that, private. The public has a right to find out more about such an interesting person as you, Namikaze-sama." The reporter shook her head. "People need to know who their protectors are." "Well, you won't be printing anything about me," Naruto stated and took away the camera. "You have just been caught in interfering with an official ninja mission of Konoha, and your camera is confiscated. Additionally, you will have to answer to the Hokage about spying on his ninjas, which is a severe offense." The ANBU decided that it was a good opportunity to show that reporter, who was known to give ninjas problems during their missions, not caring for security at all, some realities of life, and one of them appeared and took both camera and reporter and vanished. "Was that really necessary?" Lady Shiori asked. It could easily happen that an assassin disguises as a reporter. Lady Shirori, Naruto pointed out firmly. We were hired as bodyguards for the princess. Imagine if one of the reporters that clearly have learned basic ninja techniques like hiding in the shadows, which are taught at the academies of all elemental countries, would try to kill a target under the guise of wanting an interview. There are countless ways of hiding poison darts in a camera, or using other attacks if you just get close enough to a target. It is why during official press conferences, which I expect one to be set up once a result is found for the negotiations that your daimyo is involved in currently, the reporters are thoroughly examined and searched by ninjas trained on things like that before they are allowed anywhere near. I see, I never realized the danger of that, Lady Shirori admitted. Reporters were just an unavoidable nuisance of life for me so far. Being nobility basically entails having to deal with them. Naruto nodded. I think we should escort you back to your hotel now. I'm not sure that Madame Oatbane was working alone, and I can't take the risk of more real or fake reporters being around, Naruto stated. It's not too long until the arranged time for you to return anyway, and perhaps getting an early dinner wouldn't be a bad idea now. I can agree to that, Lady Shirori nodded, while Natsuki looked unhappy, especially as Naruto refused to take her arm right now, being too busy with keeping a close eye on everything around, and telling her that he needed to be ready to act at a moment's notice, which he couldn't while she held on to him. Still, Ino read the situation correctly and managed to distract Natsuki as well as she could, and they reached the hotel without incident. Inside the princess's room, Ino showed her a few tricks that kunoichi were taught to look beautiful at short notice, which was enough to get them over the remainder of the time until Natsuki met with her father for dinner, during which the team was released from bodyguard duty by the regular guards around the daimyo. Naruto reported to the leader of the guard team about the busted reporter, and then led his team back to the Hokage Tower to give a formal report on the mission. It was thankfully an uneventful mission overall. The reporter could be chalked off as a minor disturbance. Naruto sat at his table in his secret home, eating his own dinner and drinking some green tea. He had taken a hot shower to deal with the tenseness of his muscles. He was very glad that this mission was done. As far as he had heard, the negotiations, the first phase of them at least, hadn't gone too badly, and a tentative probationary trade agreement was set up to help Wave Country with its recovery. The relations between Fire and Wind Country were still complicated, even if the Wind Daimyo condemned the attack on Konoha and declared that the previous Kazekage had acted against his wishes there. Still, it would take years until any progress would be made there. He had been told that he was only going to teach his normal Fuinjutsu class the next day. After that, he was going to be placed on a team of Chunin to investigate some rumors about people vanishing around a gold mine. Some of the workers had managed to escape and asked Konoha for help. Supposedly a high-ranking, insane ninja was leading the operation at the gold mine, and it needed the intervention of Konoha's ninjas to deal with things. The others on the team that he would lead would be Hinata, Sasuke, and Shikamaru. Well, he could work with them. Normally an advanced genin team would get the mission, but the next Chunin exams were coming up and Kakashi-sensei wanted them to give a grand show of the superiority of Konoha, even just 5 months after the village being attacked during the finals of the last exams. Thus Guy and Asuma would be busy with training the two teams that had the best chances to get promoted. The exams were going to take place in 4 weeks' time in Taki. During those weeks the two teams would concentrate on training. Normally Naruto wouldn't be going out to a longer mission right now, what with having to teach at the academy, but Kakashi was still short on personnel, and with two Jonin being occupied with training their teams, another needed to take their place, and Naruto was incredibly versatile on missions, being only officially special Jonin in rank, as he lacked experience for the full Jonin rank. Well, missions like the ones he went on to recently certainly would give him that. The lessons from specialists could be switched around so that the children didn't really notice that one of their teachers was out on missions. He had been told that one of the Kenjutsu specialists would be substituting, making it appear that they were holding the specialist lessons whenever one of them had the time. Hinata Hyuga looked at the work she had finished that day. She was progressing very nicely in her studies of becoming a qualified medic nin. The lessons with Tsunade-sama were very demanding, but also rewarding. Seeing how she could now use the mystical palm jutsu perfectly, mainly thanks to having been trained in chakra control all her life, with Sakura Haruno being the only other student being ahead of her, was very good for her confidence. The other students weren't as far as they were, and she had a bit of an advantage in the study of healing plants, as she had researched them for the creams she had made even before she started medical training. Her father was even fairly supportive of her studies and defended her against the elders. A number of those weren't pleased with the clan heiress following such a non-combatant path, but pointing out that Tsunade Senju herself was the best medic nin in the elemental nations and acknowledged as the most powerful kunoichi there was, made them back down. And the regular success that Hinata could show from her training, progressing a lot faster than the others, except for Sakura, who simply was a genius in the area and had already trained for some months to take the position of medical nin on the current Hokage's Genin team, brought good publicity for the clan. The new programs that the Hokage had started after taking over the position had gained a lot of attention everywhere, and the ones standing out in them were seen in a very favorable light, which would be helpful in the future. And getting private lessons from Tsunade herself, which only Sakura normally got, was definitely something to be proud of. Not to mention that Shizen was also a very capable medic and was greatly involved in her training, clearly seeing her talent. When she left the hospital after her last checkup on patients that were treated there, accompanying Shizen during that, she was fairly surprised to find a messenger bird flying down to her, bringing her a summons for a mission. Of course, she knew that the medics in training could be called for them, but normally they were currently limited to their training. It had to be important to pull her out for a mission. She immediately turned her steps towards the Hokage Tower to find out what was going on. The team stood at attention in front of the Hokage, waiting for instructions. We have got information that a missing nin from Kiri is leading an operation inside a fire country. According to the reports of workers that fled from a gold mine, we are dealing with Raiga Kurasuke, a former member of the 7 ninja swordsmen of Kiri, Kakashi told the group. Like Zabuza Momochi and Kisame Hashigaki then, Sasuke commented. Correct. Raiga left Kiri during the start of the bloodline purges. He's known to wield the kiba, the double swords that can call down strong lightning attacks. From what the escaped workers told us, he often holds burials, with the perverted part being that the ones being buried are still alive. Kakashi informed the team, we won't allow for such a dangerous opponent acting from our country's soil. While Raiga isn't the most powerful member of the swordsmen, he isn't to be taken lightly. Hinata, you are going to have to take care of all the workers getting proper medical care after the mine is liberated from Raiga's control. Naruto, you are in charge with Sasuke being second in command. Shikamaru, I want you to use the new jutsu that Shikaku informed me about you mastering recently to find out as much information as possible before you attack. The mission is taking out Raiga and any accomplices he has there by whatever means necessary and securing the mine under the control of Konoha. The workers are to be freed and treated for injuries and illnesses. I will send more medical personnel for a longer stay after the main problem is dealt with. This is an A-rank mission, Kakashi informed them. Understood, Kakashi-sensei. When do we head out? Naruto asked businesslike. Tomorrow morning. Stock up on anything you need today. I want you leaving at the break of dawn, Kakashi answered. The four confirmed the orders and left to prepare. Chapter 45, Katabami Gold Mine Rescue. The way to the gold mine was fairly uneventful, if you didn't count the brief stop at a restaurant that the team took, shortly before reaching the area directly around the gold mine. The restaurant was led by an old woman called Sansho. She told them the story about many people being drawn towards the mine, but never returning, including her grandson Kabashi. She served them her specialty, which was called the curry of life. Well, the curry certainly had a noticeable effect onto the ninja team, as Sansho had somehow made it devilishly hot, and they needed a liter of water each to deal with the burning of their mouths and throats. Damn, that was worse than my mother's special chili recipe. Uchiha extra hot version. Sasuke coughed when they had left the restaurant, after Sansho had described the last part of the way to the mine and gave them a picture of her grandson, asking them to see if they could convince him to return to her. If a pyromaniac like you complains about it being too hot, there has to be something to it, Naruto commented. But yes, I think she totally overdid it on hot spices and the like. I wouldn't be surprised if a bottle of something tipped over while she was distracted. Thanks for the quick help, Hinata. You're welcome, Naruto. I'm just glad that I always first try a small bite of something before I eat it. But even that was burning my mouth. And I normally like hot and spicy food, Hinata replied. I vote that we don't try that curry again. But perhaps we could give Anko and Ibiki the recipe to use on uncooperative captives, Shikamaru suggested. Anybody confronted with that curry would spill all secrets, just for enough water to drink to get rid of the burning. Sasuke nodded. What plan will we follow now? We need more information about the site itself to see where the workers are held captive by Raiga Kurasuke and his minions. This will be a job for our scouting techniques before we work out the final plan. We can't risk the workers there. We need to draw the fighters away to defeat them, Naruto answered. Then we should probably let Hinata spy with her Byakugan first, then you and I can add to that with my shadow sneaking technique and your shadow clones, transformed into unsuspicious things and animals, like stones, small birds and the like, Shikamaru pointed out. Yes. Hinata, how far can you look with your Byakugan by now? Naruto wanted to know. About 5 kilometers, Hinata answered confidently. That should be far enough to not attract attention too early on, Shikamaru happily noted. We need to know the position of the guards, how far apart they are and the like. I will take care of that. Sancho mentioned that the mine was about 8 kilometers away from the restaurant, so we should soon be close enough for me to find out what we need, Hinata stated. Then let's go, but be vigilant for anything out of the norm. We don't know yet what kind of jutsus Raiga can use, but if he managed to keep control over this mine for such a long time, he can't be underestimated, Naruto warned. The others nodded and they ran off to find a good point from where to start their scouting. The scouting was quite informative. There was clearly a strong presence of Raiga's underlings, but they didn't seem to be highly trained. At best the stronger ones were Chunin level. Not a problem for the Konoha team at all. Shikamaru managed to get past all guards, cloaking himself into his shadow, and he investigated the setup of the main mine's area. The workers were kept in cells inside the mine during the time they didn't have to work, which happened in 4 shifts of 6 hours on end. They were only allowed to sleep 6 hours on end as well, with the remaining 12 hours being spent inside the cells. The guards kept a strict schedule, and anybody not obeying was punished harshly. The ones that mouthed off the most were buried alive, with Raiga pretending to grieve for them. Shikamaru had kept away from Raiga himself, as there were rumors that Raiga always knew everything that went on around him, which Shikamaru suspected could be some kind of bloodline limit that they didn't have any information about. He wasn't about to risk being spotted while his job was gathering as much information for his team as possible to come up with a workable plan to free the workers at the mine and bring down Raiga and his men. He currently sat opposite of Naruto and Hinata, with Sasuke next to him. So, we will be dealing with about 60 guards, next to Raiga himself, Naruto summed it up. That shouldn't be too much of a problem, Naruto. If they are all at most Chunin level, we can take them out easily, Sasuke commented. True. The important part will be to make sure that the prisoners aren't harmed while we fight the guards. And I need to neutralize Raiga, Naruto stated, which probably means I won't be able to help with the other part. What about your clones? Shikamaru asked, knowing that Naruto could throw them around like confetti. I will need them to deal with Raiga, Naruto answered, and thanks to a growth spurt my chakra control is too volatile to risk anything outside of the fight I'm involved in directly. I might accidentally overload a clone and turn it into an exploding one, which would endanger your group. I knew it was a bad idea when you told me that you wanted to learn exploding shadow clones, Sasuke groaned. Hey, as soon as my control is back to normal, which normally would only take a week tops, they will be a valuable part of my arsenal, Naruto gave back, and I'm sure that it won't be a big problem. In doubt you have more than enough firepower among you three to deal with the guards. Troublesome, but alright, we will definitely manage. In doubt we can trap them in genjutsu or something like that, Shikamaru stated. Oh, I have one that I've been waiting for a good opportunity to test, Sasuke grinned. Meaning that Kakashi-sensei told you that you were forbidden to test it on Konoha shinobi because it would annoy Tsunade too much if they came to her after experiencing it, and she would bitch to him about not keeping his students under control, Naruto translated. Well, it's really your fault. You shouldn't have tested your new seals where idiots could feel the effects and forced her to work while being hungover, Sasuke gave back. I could hardly do so underground. They would have complained much more about earthquakes disturbing the village, Naruto shook his head, and she really shouldn't go out drinking in the evenings with the pervy sage. She always gets annoyed when he hits on her, so that is the reason why the training sessions on certain mornings are much worse than others, Hinata realized. Yes, Tsunade uses those sessions for stress relief when Jiraiya got under her skin again, and isn't there to punt all over the village, Naruto confirmed. Hinata grumbled a bit over unfairness and nightmares of exploding lead balls. Back to the matter at hand, Shikamaru stated. When will we strike? I think we should use the night of the new moon, Hinata suggested. That's in 3 days. It will offer us more natural cover than other nights. Or we could use it if there are clouds in front of the moon, but that would mean finding out the weather forecast, which I have no idea about how to manage that. True. Normally there is little rain around this time of the year. I'm all for using the night of the full moon, Sasuke nodded, and I think a rainy night wouldn't do us any favors, as Raiga would have an easier time using his lightning jutsus if there was too much moisture in the air, though he might be capable, if he has enough time to prepare something, to create his own thunderstorm. He is from Kiri after all, and I would be truly surprised if he couldn't use water jutsus. With charging the air with lightning on top of that, it would create a thunderstorm. I will be on guard for that. Then you three will infiltrate the mine in 3 days, while I will draw Raiga away. If I cause enough of a ruckus, he should come out to face me in person, Naruto pondered. Just don't do so before we are in there, Shikamaru stated. That could be bad. In doubt he gets fed with some curry of life and will be too busy dealing with his burning throat. Naruto grinned evilly. You kept it? Sasuke asked shocked. What did you think? That stuff is worth being examined by our T&I department. And I wouldn't have tried eating more of it after the first bite. I used a quick substitution jutsu with something from one of my scrolls to not offend Sansho too much, Naruto admitted. Her look of being proud of her curry was really difficult to deal with. Hinata agreed, especially when she told that story about Niji's teammate Lee getting so much better after her grandson fed it to him. Either that was a different recipe, or Lee is a monster of more kinds than I thought so far, Sasuke commented. The others could only nod. They all were familiar with the eccentric genin from Guy's team. 3 days of watching the guards abuse the workers and boast about their strength, and that of their leader really got onto the nerves of the Konoha team. But they knew that the tactical advantage was too important to give up over their personal feelings. As long as the prisoners behaved within certain perimeters, they wouldn't be hurt too badly, and they would be able to heal those injuries. When the night of the new moon finally arrived, they were ready to strike. They had Naruto supply them with all kinds of seals, which he produced during the days. Shifts for guarding the mine had been done, and they knew the schedules of the guards by heart now. The plan was simple, but could go wrong if something didn't work out like planned. Then things would turn nasty quickly. Naruto would pretend to be on a scouting mission for Konoha and accidentally trigger one of the well-hidden alarms, getting through a large number of other alarms without triggering them, simply because Raiga wouldn't believe that any chunin of Konoha wouldn't at least notice the most basic ones. And Naruto was a special jonin. Naruto would document things around the mine, as if he was going to report to the Hokage and then return with a team. Basically what they had all done over the last days. Then he would engage Raiga like any spy that realized that he was stuck would do, and the other 3 would act and free the prisoners. For emergencies they all carried the tri-pronged kunai for the Flying Thunder God jutsu on their person. Naruto had also placed a large number of his seals all around possible battle spots. He didn't want to risk getting fried by lightning if there was an easy way around it. The group split up and went to their respective spots. Then they had to wait. Shikamaru was the first one to enter the mine. Cloaked in his shadows, nobody noticed him. He was tasked with defending the prisoners when the guards would be attacked by Hinata and Sasuke. The plan that they hoped they would manage to pull off was letting Sasuke trap everybody he came across in a Sharingan-based genjutsu, which had the advantage that he could apply it silently. Hinata was meant to be his backup, especially as she had her jutsu of the 64 protective palms mastered by now, and her training under Tsunade allowed her to hit certain areas on the body precisely to shut it down. She had called it a standard procedure to knock out unruly patients. The 3 boys filed that away under not getting any medic nin angry enough to do that to them. Sasuke and Hinata were hidden close to the entrance, and waited for Raiga to react to the alarm. They expected that some lower-level guards would first be dispatched, but once they didn't return, Raiga would have to take care of things himself. He was the only fully trained ninja that they had noticed after all. It didn't take longer than half an hour for the first guards to run off into the direction where Naruto wanted to trigger the alarm. After another 20 minutes of them not reporting back, another group, this time double the size of the first one, was sent out, only to also vanish without a trace. I will have to deal with this in person, Raiga told the guards at the entrance to the main cell tract of the mine. Make sure that everything here goes as normal. I doubt that anybody could give me trouble, and if the guard didn't return, well, they probably met a ninja with some skill. Of course, Raiga, a man confirmed, we will keep everything running smoothly. Should we prepare for trouble here as well? I doubt it, otherwise we would have noticed something before. I suspect that some scout from Konoha found our operations here. We are operating in fire country after all. Well, if it is one, we will soon have another burial to hold. I so love burials. Everything bad is forgiven when you bury somebody, Raiga stated with a dreamy voice. Of course, Raiga. The men nodded and Raiga jumped away, up the stone walls of the mine. Sasuke and Hinata waited for 5 minutes before starting. Sasuke rushed through the shadows and the guards didn't know what hit them before he had ensnared them in a genjutsu. Just eye contact was enough for him to cast genjutsu up to B-level by now. Hinata then proceeded to knock them out with her jutsu and they left them hidden in a dark corner to not have any coincidental alarm being raised, if anybody found them. They coordinated taking out any guards they crossed paths with through hand signs and soon had made their way over to where Shikamaru was waiting for them. Everything done on your part? Sasuke asked. Wasn't too difficult. I just had my shadows sneak up on them and strangled them into unconsciousness, Shikamaru replied. I got the 23 guards that were around this area once the alarm was noticed. How many did you get? 28. And we counted 3 men being sent out after the first alarm was triggered and then another 6 20 minutes after it, Sasuke answered. Means we have eliminated all 60 guards that we counted, and Raiga is going to face Naruto. Well, then let's wrap this up so that we can back Naruto up if he needs it. I don't like that he has to face Raiga on his own. Even if he is the only one that has the suitable element to pull it off, Shikamaru sighed. I would rather pity Raiga. Naruto is irritable if his chakra control is thrown off by growth spurts, Sasuke told the other two. He can't be worse than Tsunade-sensei in the morning with a hangover, Hinata deadpanned. The two boys looked at each other, somewhat surprised how much the formerly really shy Hyuga heiress had changed to even give a comment like that. Training under the female Sannin seemed to really bring out a different part of her personality. Naruto waited for Raiga to appear after he had dispatched the second group easily. It didn't take too long for him to appear. So you are the one that hurt my men, Raiga stated dangerously. They attacked me first, I just defended myself, Naruto replied, staying calm. This is my territory, Raiga continued. This is the territory of Fire Country, and the only ninja force that has any authority over here is Konoha, Naruto declared. On behalf of the Hokage, I demand that you cease any aggressive behavior and come with me peacefully. And you truly think I would listen to a child like you? Raiga laughed. Be careful, Raiga, he is really strong. A different voice sounded softly, which made Naruto be on guard. I can take him on, Raiga stated confidently and crossed the 2 swords he held in his hands. The swords were a normal length, but each sword had 2 fawn-like extensions, making Naruto understand how the swords had got the name Kiba. Immediately lightning started running along the blades, and they cracked with energy. Naruto wasn't intimidated and pulled out a sword of his own, coating it in wind chakra. Then Raiga jumped towards him, yelling in fury. Naruto stayed calm. He met the twin swords with his one sword, parrying the strike, his wind chakra nullifying the effect of the lightning chakra. You little pest! Raiga cried out annoyed. Careful, another behind you, the soft voice said. Raiga directed a bolt of lightning behind himself, and it hit one of the clones Naruto had prepared beforehand. You can't take me with this kind of simple trick, boy, Raiga boasted. Then how about this? Naruto asked unbothered, and a rain of shuriken came down on Raiga from all around them, with Naruto leaving his position by flashing to one of his prepared seals. Raiga frantically deflected all the weapons, but basically panicked when some of them got through his defense and hit his back. Naruto heard the other voice cry out in pain. No, Ranmaru, Raiga exclaimed. It's not too bad, the voice got out, just a grazing hit. Still, it told Naruto what he needed to know. Raiga's ability to detect what was going on around him was due to another person, which was connected to his back. Well, he would deal with that before continuing the fight to take Raiga himself out. He seemed to be little more than a berserker without that voice telling him what to do. Well, time to get the poisoned weapons out. He let 5 shadow clones attack Raiga to keep him distracted. With how difficult it was by now to hit his clones, it should be more than enough time to let Naruto and 4 other clones take position to fire a barrage of senbons coated in sleeping drugs. As he didn't know what kind of assistant Raiga had with him, he wouldn't go for the deadly kind just yet. And that ability was interesting enough to have the village's specialists examine that assistant. Once the last clone was fried by lightning, the barrage of senbons started. And each and every hit would count towards taking this opponent out. Naruto could hear some grunts from Raiga and small cries of pain in the other voice before he had used up the senbons for this barrage. Now he only needed to wait for a short time. Some stupid needles won't defeat me, Raiga shouted into the darkness. Raiga, I'm so tired, the second voice stated. No, you can't go, Raiga protested. Can't stay awake, was the last thing the voice said. Ranmaru, Ranmaru! Raiga cried in despair. Speak to me, Ranmaru. No, you will die, you killed Ranmaru. Naruto could only shake his head. Raiga was not only a wild animal, it seemed, he was also incredibly stupid. Well, the poison would also send him to sleep very soon. Probably this Ranmaru person was small, as the poison had worked very quickly. Normally it would take longer for it to have any effect. Then he saw Raiga stumbling as well. No, I won't die without avenging Ranmaru, Raiga stated, firing more lightning bolts around, not hitting anything. Naruto made sure to stay out of sight, as he didn't want to risk a stray bolt of lightning finding its target before Raiga crumpled to the ground. He waited for another minute to make sure the poison had fully worked before stepping out from his hiding place. Really, for a member of the famous 7 swordsmen, this fight had been a real disappointment. He hadn't used any really high-level techniques, except the one flying thunder god jump. But he could as well have used the standard body flicker to reach the same results. Compared to the fight between Zabuza Momochi and Kakashi-sensei, Raiga was a sore disappointment. Well, nothing to do about it but securing him, his weapons, and finding out who this Ranma character was. Once he'd pulled off the hood of the cape Raiga wore, he found that he indeed had another person on his back. A child, in fact, probably around 9 years old. It was a boy with pale violet hair, which he wore to chin length. A quick check of his vitals told him that the boy was just drugged and otherwise okay. Raiga really jumped to conclusions way too fast. Well, nothing to do about it. Naruto took the boy from Raiga's back and tied his hands up with some ninja wire. He didn't know how well the boy was trained, as no report about Raiga mentioned a child traveling with him. Not even Danzo had any information on that part, even if the file he had read about Raiga mentioned that he had taken to always wearing that coat with hood. Now it was clear why. Then Raiga was tied up as well, and additionally he put chakra suppression seals onto his body before putting him into a prisoner scroll. Capturing Raiga alive would add a nice bounty to the mission, and the Kiba swords would also be a great addition for the village. If he didn't already have the sword of his great-grandfather, he might have been tempted to keep the swords, as they could naturally create lightning chakra. While he didn't use the sword much, as he didn't have a need for it so far, simply because it would be total overkill to use such a sword against opponents on C-rank missions, he was pretty good at using it by now. The Sandaime had agreed that, as it was a family heirloom, Naruto had the right to the sword, and had signed the form to give it into Naruto's custody. The sword he had used in this fight was simply one made of chakra-conductive metal. While expensive to buy, it wasn't as special as a sword belonging to the 7 great swords of Kiri or the sword of the Thunder God. He also sealed the child into a second prisoner scroll, but, as a surface examination told him that the child wasn't trained as a ninja and actually had a fairly weak body, he didn't consider chakra suppressors necessary. After finishing and undoing the traps he had set up in case he would need them, he turned his steps towards the direction of the gold mine. He was sure the others had already done their part. Hinata was dismayed with the state of the prisoners at the mine. While they weren't in danger of falling down dead, they definitely needed some serious medical treatment for a while before they could be called healthy again. They had only got the needed food to be able to work each day, enough water, but no way to clean themselves. To treat small injuries and problems like flea were common. She started to work on the worst cases, with Shikamaru and Sasuke performing first aid for the lesser ones, which was about the level of competency they had. They had been working for about 5 minutes when some of the better-looking prisoners cried out that he had spotted lightning a short distance away. Most feared what Raiga could do to them with his lightning jutsus, which was the reason why he had managed to take over as easily as he had done. The previous owner of the mine had been electrocuted to death and been the first to be buried on the grounds of the mine. They knew that Naruto was probably the one Raiga was fighting against, but they all knew that the leader of their mission was more than a match for a lightning user. He was used to sparring against one, as both the Hokage and Sasuke were primary lightning element users as well. He knew how to deal with that element, and also had the wind element as his own primary element. Don't worry too much about the lightning. It's just the distraction working out, Shikamaru assured the prisoners. Let's just get everybody that needs it treated and then leave this place to a safer location. The prisoners could definitely agree with that plan, and some of the stronger ones helped with first aid. After 30 minutes they were ready to leave. Alright, we will need you to help each other. Stay in groups of 4 and make sure that nobody of your group falls behind. We will guard you and keep any possible opposition at bay. Normally we should have got all the guards, which we sealed into prisoner scrolls, which are escape-proof. But it's always better to err on the side of caution, Shikamaru pointed out. Sasuke will be taking the lead of the group. Hinata will be at the end with the ones that have the worst injuries, and I will cover the middle part. Stay as calm and silent as possible while we move. The prisoners nodded, and soon they were out of the tunnel. Sasuke made sure that no enemy was close by and then started the track up the narrow path that was the only access to the valley in which the mine was located. They needed about 10 minutes to have everybody up there, when a person landed silently next to Sasuke. I take it your part went well, Naruto? Sasuke half-asked, half-stated. Definitely. I have Raiga and his little assistant Ranma sealed up in prisoner scrolls, both drugged with the sleeping variant of my poisons, Naruto answered. Good to know. Any guards we overlooked during the stakeout? Sasuke asked. None that I noticed. As soon as we have the prisoners at the meeting point, which I already sent a shadow clone to Kakashi-sensei to confirm that we managed to take out Raiga, the mission will be fulfilled successfully. Good. Though I wonder why nobody dealt with this before. I mean, if one team of 3 Chunin and 1 special Jonin could break up this operation as easily as we did, why wasn't it done before? Sasuke wanted to know. A good question. One that I'm willing to bet Kakashi-sensei also will have. Naruto nodded. By the way, did your genjutsu work as we feared? Let's just say that they will have nightmares of fire demons for a while, Sasuke stated, grinning evilly. Even while using genjutsu, you Uchihos can't deny your pyromaniac tendencies. Naruto shook his head, but didn't really mind. At least Sasuke got it out of his system with people that definitely deserve some torment for what they put the prisoners through. The walk to the meeting spot that had been agreed upon beforehand, occasionally the restaurant of Sancho, was uneventful, but took them about 2 hours, as the civilians couldn't walk for long periods of time and only slowly. After half an hour, the ninjas passed out water bottles and rice balls to give them back some strength. They took a break of 15 minutes before they continued. All the time Hinata made sure that the ones that were off the worst health-wise didn't have to exhaust themselves too much. When they arrived, they already found a large group of tents being set up around the restaurant. Even Tsunade-sensei came, Hinata commented, next to bringing all the more advanced members of my healing class. Good, then this should be going well and quickly, Shikamaru commented. Hello, everybody. Good work on freeing them all, Tsunade greeted them. Now, Hinata, I want a full report on your findings, treatment you already gave them, and what we can expect. Naruto, the Hokage asks that you report to Anko as soon as you arrive. She is the one in charge here. And the prisoners can go and eat something once they were checked over at the restaurant. Sancho was very helpful and has cooked her famous curry of life for everybody. She promised me that it would bring them back onto their feet in no time at all. The 4 Konoha nins blanched at the idea of all the poor prisoners having to eat that horribly hot curry. Tsunade-sensei, I don't think that it would be a good idea, Hinata started. Nonsense, Hinata. A hearty curry is exactly the right thing for those that didn't get enough to eat for a while, Tsunade declared, and nothing the team could say would sway her. Thankfully, for the prisoners, it took a while for them all to be cleared, and after Naruto discreetly told Anko about the effects of the curry, and she had had a small sample, she confiscated the whole cauldron, instead setting 2 of the Akimikis in the group to cooking something less hot for them to eat, telling Sancho that, as good as her curry of life was, it was not suited for those that had just gone through a harsh ordeal and needed a bit of a light diet for a few days to let their stomachs recover. She told her that the rice she served with the curry was perfect for their needs and that some meat, cooked in basic broth, would be all they were allowed for now, though the mad cackle she left off when she had Naruto seal the curry into a stasis scroll, with the comment that it would be served to the former guards of the mine in Raiga, made the 4 that had eaten the curry before be glad that they weren't on the other side of Anko's wrath. Chapter 46. Academy Testing. Naruto grinned when he looked over the scheme he had worked out. Thanks to teaching basic seals at the academy for about 6 months now, and he had got 3 months of that on end where he could actually hold classes all days of the week, as Kakashi-sensei had finally managed to find enough competent team leaders to give Naruto some break from missions to concentrate on the teaching. His classes were now ready for an actual test of what they had learned. Nothing worked as well as a real-life scenario to make students that took the academy too easy wake up without getting killed against a stronger opponent. Especially his subject required concentration and precision, which many children had trouble with. Like his former classmates during the mission where the Jonin senseis of their team pitted them all against him, the academy students would learn by all kinds of seal applications that they better took all their training serious, not just the parts that were considered cool. He would do this for all age groups, and none of the groups that had already done the test would be able to talk to those in other years until he was done with administering the test. He certainly would have a lot of fun with this. Konohamaru and his classmates stood at the edge of the training field closest to the academy. They didn't know which of the specialist teachers would take the class today, but so far, these lessons had been fairly interesting. When it was time for the class to begin, Naruto appeared in front of them in a body flicker. Good morning, everybody. Today we will see if you have actually practiced what I taught you over the past 6 months, Naruto started, looking serious. I have arranged with all your other teachers that you are excused from all other classes for today, as you will be doing a training exercise, which doubles as a test for my subject, Fuinjutsu. The students looked at each other torn between elation of not having boring classes like history, and having an unannounced test sprung on them. You will be put into teams of 3 students, similar to how you will be put onto genin teams. This is also a simulation of your ability to work with your classmates on a common goal. Seals can be used by you or against you on any kind of mission. Your homeroom teacher has helped me with putting together basic equipment sets that are standard for D-rank missions, which this will be similar to. Each team will get 1 set of those and you aren't allowed to use more than that, except you can get it without having to buy it in a store. Those won't be around on missions either after all. The main area for the mission simulation will be the forest and the training grounds around Konoha, But it can happen that other places are included as well, Naruto explained. I won't give you more information, as part of this simulation is to gather information. To determine the teams, we will let coincidence decide. As you can see, I have spread colored balls all over the training field. You will pick one. They can be screwed open and the same numbers are one team. This would ensure that nobody could cheat and create a team with just his friends. He wanted them mixed up to not have any advantages. This was after all one of the younger classes and team setups were still years away. Each team will get a mission objective from me, once the teams are determined. How you go about the task is fully up to you. Just know that you have to be at the top of your game to get a passing grade for this. And it will be influencing your overall grade for the year, Naruto revealed, which made some frown. But why wasn't this test announced if it is that important for us? A boy asked annoyed. A ninja has to be ready for a mission at all times. You are training to become ninjas, so you should get used to that mentality early on. Not to mention that surprise tests aren't uncommon in any subject. If they didn't happen so far, the other teachers were coddling you, which will be dangerous for your development. Being a ninja is no walk in the park, it's hard work and never being content with what you have already achieved. There will always be somebody that is stronger, smarter, faster or trickier than you. If you want to survive and become good at this job, you better take it serious, Naruto declared sternly. Alright, line up and on my signal, go and get yourselves a ball. You have 30 seconds. The children scrambled to get a good spot at the border of the field, and when Naruto whistled on his fingers, they ran forward, snatching up the closest balls. The smarter ones ran to the back, where there wasn't as much crowding for the balls. Okay, time's up, Naruto announced, and thankfully the children had all collected the balls. Now open them up and when I call out your number, step forward and collect your mission objective and equipment. Naruto started from one and handed out sealed envelopes with the tasks for the children next to 3 pouches with equipment for each team. They all held different things, but they would find that part on their own. He wouldn't inform them. He also wouldn't tell them that he had a small army of transformed shadow clones all over the village to observe the behavior and progress of the teams. Once the tasks were handed out, he had the teams line up, similar to how it had been done after the second round of the Chunin exams. Now you will open your envelopes once you have separated from the other members of your class, and are on your own. After all, only your team is allowed to be privy to the mission you have got. That is a common occurrence with higher-ranking missions. It might even happen that you will be in direct competition with other teams for a mission objective. You have until 3 in the afternoon to fulfill your task and return to your classroom at the academy. I will be there, waiting for you, taking your reports about the task. One bit of warning, you might be confronted with the need to do first aid if one of your teammates is injured a little. In case something really bad happens and you need to go to the hospital, the mission is considered failed and you will receive a 0 for the test. Exception is the very unlikely case of outside interference. But that is something I will deal with, should it actually happen. The children nodded, understanding how serious this test was. Okay, it's 8:30 now and you will want as much time as you can get. You may go to a place to read your instructions. Oh, and you might want to take your lunch boxes with you, as buying lunch at a shop would also be considered failing the mission. If you happen to find some edible plants or fruits in the forest, they are fair game. Naruto vanished from his spot and the children separated from the other groups to get their task started. Naruto reappeared next to the homeroom teacher of the class, Adakuro, who had watched the meeting between Naruto and his students hidden from the classroom window. Adakuro wore the standard Konoha uniform, had short brown hair and wore rectangular glasses. You think they are ready for this, Naruto? He asked. Not really, most haven't taken the class as serious as they should, but they will realize their mistake today. Some know their seals and are also doing well in the general classes, so they should be able to direct their teammates into the right direction. It will also allow me to put some of them onto studying the intermediate material, if they show good results today. But I believe in confronting children with a simulated, downgraded version of what expects ninjas outside of the village on missions from an early point in their studies on. This way, they won't have to learn things they slacked on the painful way, by being injured on missions, or lose a teammate. Better they see how much work they still have to do while they still have the safety of the village to fall back on, instead of when they don't have the time to correct their mistakes. It was one thing my own year lacked greatly. I know that during peacetimes the requirements of the academy are lowered, but you don't help the children that the council, the instigator of the previous curriculum, supposedly wanted to allow a profession as a ninja. It isn't a job for everybody, Naruto answered. Very true. I'm much happier now that the new curriculum has been implemented than before. I always feared that we were sending out children that were simply not ready by far to survive in the field. And honestly, While there is nothing wrong with a team staying genin for 2 to 3 years, simply because the training beyond the academy curriculum takes time, and some things need more individualized teaching, on average, a team stayed genin for 5 years, which is really long, Adakuro commented. I especially like that we now have the option of keeping the children that try for the ninja path in mixed classes for 2 years, before we make the first cut. Those that clearly can't make the training work, because they don't have enough chakra, will be redirected into different paths. The idea of Lady Tsunade to train those with very small chakra reserves up to become employees at the hospital for low-level injuries and help mixing common medicine, next to other jobs that don't need much chakra, was very good. This way, the children don't get their hopes up too much about being a ninja, but still doing something valuable for the village. Naruto nodded, while watching how the last groups left the school grounds. Tsunade, as one of the advisors of the Hokage, specifically in charge of the overhaul of the hospital, had given Kakashi many suggestions for how they could firstly reduce genin casualties in the field, and secondly, increase personnel in lower-level jobs, which still couldn't be given to pure civilians. It was one of the new projects the 5th Hokage had started. They lacked properly trained personnel for many jobs, which fell under the jurisdiction of the ninja side of the village. Some was covered by the clans, who sold things to the general public, like the Nara were known for herbal remedies and the Akimikis for long-lasting travel provisions, but they were quite expensive, as they were created on a case-by-case basis normally. The clans only had limited means to do this. Other things were in administrative positions, which required having taken oaths to keep secrets, which normal civilians wouldn't be allowed to do. Many of those that would have dropped out of the academy and the whole military before could now be redirected early on and trained to take up these normally hard-to-fill positions. Some retired ninjas worked in them, but most of the time the active ninjas had to do them on top of their normal jobs, as they simply lacked numbers. Kakashi also already planned, but which hadn't been announced to everybody yet. Naruto only knew because he was told to look out for a certain type of student for a pilot project while teaching at the academy, to set up specialized branches of low-level ninjas that were only there to do D ranks that came down to assist with physically taxing jobs, which could be made easier with chakra. Like the missions that Team 7 had taken in the beginning, like painting storage halls, tiling swimming pools, cleaning out fields for farming, and so on. Ninja craftsman teams would mean that the village wouldn't have to rely on professional craftsmen from the outside. The plan was to have local craftsmen take on several trainees to teach them their craft to a point that any type of normal repairs could be performed by the teams. The fully trained craftsmen would be in charge of larger projects, and over a period of about 10 years, the Hokage wanted to have enough teams running around to cut that part of D-rank missions out of the roster completely. Genin, while they needed to have a way to earn money, shouldn't have to be forced to do D-rank missions all the time. They should train to be ready for C-rank missions in at most 6 months. Normally it should take 3 months for the easier types of C-ranks, which were basically D-ranks, just outside of the village. If the village had teams that were trained for craftsman jobs, which made up basically 60% of the D-rank pool each month, they could ask for more money, as the jobs would be done to higher standards. The craftsman genin, the current working title, would be paid with a basic salary each month, plus standardized commissions, depending on the type of job and the number during that month. The base salary for genin, which all genin would be getting for the first 4 years of their time as genin, was just enough to pay for rent and utilities each month, for a small apartment that didn't have much space. Anything more had to be earned, but it at least allowed a genin to participate in things like chunin exams away from the village, which was currently a real problem for some that didn't have a family to fall back upon. The current system was that genin would only get the payment for the missions they did, which, considering that most teams mainly did D ranks, wasn't that much. Kakashi had delegated working out procedures and financial concerns to the 3rd Hokage and the 2 elders, Koharu and Hamira. The 3 had promised to have it done by the end of the month, to start the pilot phase. How are you going to prevent that the students tell other years about the test once they are done for today? Adakuro asked. I have put a seal onto the mission scroll, meaning the papers in the envelopes, which prevents them from talking about it for 2 weeks. By then, all years will be done, Naruto replied. That's ingenious. Can that also be applied for normal missions? Adakuro was curious. It already has become standard for missions that the Jonin and ANBU take. I mainly know about it, as I am one of the people that supply the Hokage with the needed discreetly prepared paper. The seal is written in invisible ink, which means you need a seal master to draw it, as you can't check it over for mistakes, Naruto explained. I take it the other person to make them is Dark Phoenix, Adakuro stated. I assume the same. I don't get informed about all people involved in projects that deal with Fuinjutsu, as long as the teams don't get a place to exchange their ideas and work on them together. That has also happened in the past, but isn't the standard procedure, mainly because you don't want to have all your sealing specialists in one place regularly to prevent targeted assassinations. True, seal masters are always top priority targets when enemies want to harm a village, Adakuro agreed. This was standard knowledge for those of rank Chunin and higher. Well, I will better go and observe my part of the test area. I will also replace deactivated seals for following groups, Naruto grinned. It would otherwise be too easy anyway. Adakuro nodded and Naruto left with a body flicker. Naruto grinned silently while watching how the kiddies from the academy faced his missions. He had done this the simple way. It was a modified capture the flag situation. Each group had been given the location of one item. 3 items of different colors made a set, which needed to be brought back to the academy within the time limit. This meant it was impossible that all teams succeeded in the mission. 2/3 would fail. At least. All items were secured with seals, which the groups had to deactivate or trigger in a way that didn't harm them. And he had added storage seals that held knockout gas in them. Tsunade had been nice enough to give him a version that wouldn't do more than knock the kids out for a few hours without side effects. He had taught them how to check for the contents of a seal. Contrary to what many thought, there were ways to find out what a seal held without opening the seal, and the kanji declaring the item inside the seal didn't always have to be truthful. Many of his knockout gas canister seals claimed to hold kunai. Some actually did, as it was a legit way for the groups to add to their normal supplies, but it would drive home to never take anything for granted, especially not seals that you didn't make yourself. If the groups were smart, they would use the masks that were part of the first aid sets. They had seals on them that filtered poisonous gases, including any kind of sleeping gas, and he had covered those in class, while introducing the students to everyday uses of seals in Konoha. If they had checked their equipment properly, they would know it, otherwise, well, they needed to hold their breath and get creative. If a team triggered the gas and was fully knocked out, one of his shadow clones would secure them and leave them in the hospital room of the academy, meaning they failed the test. They could still have gained some points, but it would be a mission failure, as the gas was set to last the full duration of the mission's simulation. He had warned his sensei about this, to avoid angry parents coming down on him. Once the test was over, an antidote would be given, which would have the children fully awake after 10 minutes. To not make it too easy, each team had to decipher a simple code about the location of their item. To make it fair, each item was only the target of one team. Once the item was secured, the team would get a second message, which was located with the items he had hidden, which would inform them of the need to have 3 different items at the end of the day and that they could only be found with the other teams. As they were just a beginner class at the academy, Naruto had included a list which team had which item. Otherwise they wouldn't be able to get it done. If they had paid attention which team was which, they would be able to plan properly. Another lesson that they needed to learn early on. Any kind of information could become vital on a mission, even if it was the setup of rival teams or allies. After all, nothing stopped them from aligning themselves with a team that had the same item they had and attack a team with the needed item with superior numbers. As long as they could agree that they would attack 4 teams overall as a group of 6, they would manage to pass the test. He had a points sheet, which each of his clones had with them. On it was a list of things he was looking out for and which would be used to decide the final marks for this test. It could happen after all that you failed the mission, but still won something. And this was a learning experience for his students. They were beginners, thus the requirements weren't as high as they would be for the higher classes, which would include harder hiding places, like up in trees, next to more advanced seals. Konohamaru's team consisted of Riku and Nitaro. Riku was in the lower part of their class, as he never took things seriously, and Nitaro was somewhere in the middle, as he struggled to keep up with those from clans and ninja families. But he worked hard to not fall back, which put him on Konohamaru's good side. He didn't like those that didn't work properly. After the telling off that he got from his grandfather for being rude to the children of the Kazekage, and Ebisu getting orders to finally teach him properly, not letting him get away with too many things, he had understood that being a ninja wasn't some game. While he wanted recognition for himself, he wouldn't get it if he continued like he had done before. Not to mention that the village had got a new Hokage and his grandfather was now paying more attention to his development than he could do before, and drilled into him how he had managed to get to the level of Hokage in the first place. It took several years of hard work and always being out to learn new things to improve yourself. When he found out that the hero of the invasion of their village, Naruto Namikaze, who was also the son of the 4th Hokage, and therefore in a similar position as himself, would be teaching Fuinjutsu, he decided to not goof off. He took the lesson serious, even if the precision needed to make proper seals could get annoying. Still, his grandfather had told him how this art had been deciding to win the third shinobi war for Konoha, as the fourth's flying thunder god jutsu was mainly based on Fuinjutsu. And Naruto had mastered his father's jutsu and was even more devastating with it than him, as he could combine it with the shadow clone jutsu by now. Konohamaru wanted the respect that he saw Naruto was getting, even if he wondered why there also were some hateful looks. Their mission paper told them to go to Training Ground 23 and collect an item there, then they would get more information. They had needed to decipher a code to find out that much, but Nitaro was very good at this. He loved riddles of all kinds and had always got high grades in the classes about description of messages, and could use 4 Konoha codes easily. Konohamaru knew 3 perfectly and a 4th in parts. There was much more to being a ninja than he had naively believed, but he wouldn't give up. He would become the best, and one day he would be Hokage, to not only be seen as the 3rd Hokage's grandson. At least at the academy the teachers had strict orders to not treat him any different to his classmates. Nobody there called him honorable grandson, which was a nice change to before. And from what he had overheard from the older students, the curriculum had been changed in major parts recently, shortly before he got to start there. It was now much more demanding in the physical parts, and theory was compressed during the class hours. Much you had to work on for homework. His normal school day started with basic conditioning classes, as they were called. Running, obstacles, climbing, doing weight training, exercises to train muscle growth and balance, and so on. Each of the classes at the academy would start with 1 class period of that, which meant all classes of a year did this at the same time. One of the homeroom teachers would lead the students through the exercises, while the other 2 walked around, correcting them if they didn't perform them properly. Then they got 2 class periods on the theory topic of the day, ranging from maths to geography or history. Then they had 20 minutes break to play and eat breakfast. After that it was weapons training or taijutsu training, switching from day to day, until lunch. After lunch 1 period of strategy and tactics, then specialist classes on 3 days the week. The other 2 days were for obstacle course training. He knew that the higher years had 1 mission simulation a week, but they didn't do this until today. It was cool that they would be able to put the things they had learned to use in a practical setting. He didn't want to fail, therefore, he took this really serious. Okay, let's get to Training Ground 23, Konohamaru declared. Shouldn't we make a plan beforehand? Nintaro pointed out. I mean, we were warned regularly that rushing into any situation could kill you. Of course, we will scout the location before we enter, especially for hidden trap seals, Konohamaru nodded, but Naruto-sensei couldn't have trapped the whole village. It would have caused trouble with the civilians that go about their days. I don't doubt that there are surveillance seals around that help him observe how we do in the task. My grandfather once mentioned a training exercise that pitted all the genin from last year's graduation group against Naruto Namike's, and he had a week to prepare the field, so to say, and he owned them. But even then, he wasn't obvious about it. Traps can only be placed successfully in places where you are sure to hit the target you want to be hit, except you go for mass panic, which isn't part of this mission. This is a training mission for us, not real life or death, meaning that civilians aren't allowed to be targeted. What a drag, Rick sighed. Well, let's get this over with. I don't want to deal with whatever punishment our sensei can come up with, if we fail. The other 2 nodded and took the normal streets towards the area where the training grounds were located. Naruto was a bit disappointed how fast the first 2 teams had been taken out of the running. They hadn't checked their equipment, they had barely managed to decipher the code to the location, and he had intentionally chosen the one that was taught first at the academy, to make it fair, as these were the youngest students there, and when they reached the hiding place of the item, they failed to look for sealed traps and were taken out by the sleeping gas. They definitely needed remedial training in basic situational awareness. Well, their grades would be reflecting this failure. His shadow clones had taken them back to the academy and left them there to wait until the test was over. He only needed to replace the triggered seals and then could leave the spots the way they were. Some other groups might come across the mission papers, which he intentionally left lying where the other teams had dropped them, and could secure the information and items for themselves. He wasn't sure if any team would think about that, but it was an option. He hadn't given the group many rules, and anything that wasn't forbidden was allowed. Next to the fast failures of the 2 teams, there were also positive observations. Many teams had done the basic stage well and had deciphered the code they had been given and were on the way to their destinations. They stopped long enough to get an idea of what kind of traps he had set up, and then put their heads together to work out a usable approach. They would definitely get points for that. Nobody needed to know everything, especially not when they were just beginners, but the academy stressed that teamwork was important, especially with the new curriculum. One team had been smart, and had sketched out where which seal had been placed, and in case they didn't recognize one, they had drawn it as well as they could and then consulted the other team members to make sure what they were dealing with. While not all teams checked their equipment immediately, they mostly did so when they reached their destination. He could live with that. It was their first scenario of this type after all. He would point it out during the after-mission briefing, meaning the lesson he would have with them tomorrow. He had considered telling them today, when everything was still fresh in their minds, but he had decided that it would work better to let them think about the results one night, especially as it gave them more time for the task. Konoha looked at the things in his pouch. Once they had reached Training Ground 23, he realized that they hadn't even had a look into the pouches and didn't know what they had to work with. He had pointed it out to the other two. It was a bit embarrassing to have made such a beginner mistake. At least they had realized it before entering the critical area. It would have been really embarrassing if something in the pouches could have helped them pass this test and they simply didn't know about it, because they didn't take the time to see what they had to work with. Are these masks standard equipment? Rika asked, frowning. Not that I know of, Konoha replied. Try channeling some chakra into them to see if they have seals on them. Riku, who had the masks in his pouch, did so with one and a seal appeared. That's some kind of filter seal. Smart. I would bet that it protects you against things like sleeping drugs and poisons on missions. Which means it might be that we will be confronted with that during this test, Nitaro stated. Very well possible. And Naruto-sensei mentioned seals like these when he described useful seals that could save your life on a mission. I suggest we put them on when we enter the training ground. We might not need them, but it never hurts to be cautious, Konoha declared. The other two nodded and tied the masks over their lower faces, checking that they sat properly to not let any air through without being filtered by the masks. The seals activated immediately, as they were made to react to being in general contact with the chakra points of a person's face. Okay, first is reconnaissance. We will carefully examine the training ground to find out what kind of traps there are. If we recognize a seal, we note the kind and position, but don't act before we have come back together. Try to not trigger anything, Konoha told the other two, who nodded. We should take 15 minutes to search for the item and the traps, then assemble, make a full plan and then act together. Sounds good, Nitaro agreed. Let's do it that way, Rika added. They went into the training ground and split up, searching for anything out of the norm. Naruto's clone watched Konohamaru's team. Training Ground 23 was fairly standard. It had a middle-sized pond. For training in water walking, there were some training posts for taijutsu and weapons practice, and of course many trees. He had hidden the item for this group in a hole in a tree that was about halfway into the training ground. It was of course now surrounded by simple traps with seals and without. Basically, weapon shooting arrays and the sleeping gas seals. There also were some paint bombs in the mix, to give them something else to look out for. So far, they had done fairly well. They had found and disabled 5 of the 6 sleeping gas seals after they had come back together to report their findings and make a map of the training ground and the location of the item they needed. The 6th seal had been triggered, as it had been the one that was hidden best, but as they wore the masks, they didn't fall to it. They still quickly shut it down, as they didn't want to let too much gas stream out. They had also neutralized the 3 kunai and saban shooter seals and had taken the weapons inside. Nitaro had a very healthy opinion of getting more resources, meaning, stealing from the enemy was always the best way to proceed, as it saved funds on your part. Well, coming from a civilian family, he would know about the costs, as it would be outside the normal budget. Konoha had never had to deal with financial matters to replace training equipment, as he was the 3rd Hokage's grandson and Rika's family was well off, which meant he never had to worry about not getting something. Probably a reason why he was quite lazy. He never needed to work for things, they were just given to him. The one paint bomb in the mix had been intentionally triggered, as none of the 3 knew how to stop it from going off, as Naruto had combined it with a seal that would trigger it if it sensed a chakra signature a certain distance away from it. Konoha had spotted the trigger seal, but didn't know how to disable it, even if Naruto had covered it in class. Nitaro and Rika didn't remember it either, but a safe way to go about a seal like that was intentionally triggering it while you were out of reach. A well-aimed kunai from Riku did the job, as he had directly hit the paint bomb seal. It was a valid solution to the problem, even if not the most elegant one. Once they had double-checked that no more traps were in their way, they collected the item, a necklace with a red pendant, from a hole in a tree, next to a second envelope. Okay, we managed this part. Seemingly these are new instructions, Rika said. Are they written in code again? Konohamaru asked. There is just one line in code, Rika replied. What does it say? Nitaro asked. No idea. I suck at remembering those code symbols, Riku admitted. You should really catch up on it, Riku. Honestly, this is the first code we learned at the academy, Nitaro commented and looked at the symbol. Ah, it says, channel chakra into the scroll. Probably a seal will activate to reveal the message. Smart of Sensei, Konohamaru approved. Riku did so and 2 scrolls popped out of 2 storage seals that became visible with chakra. Invisible sealing ink. Wow, that's so cool, Nitaro exclaimed astonished. Definitely. It must be really difficult to draw a seal without being able to see it, Konohamaru mentioned, knowing how hard it was to do it while you could see what you did. Well, Naruto-sensei is a sealing master after all, Rika said and opened one of the scrolls. This has just normal writing on it. It says, to finish the mission you have to collect the 2 other pendants in green and blue. Where should we find them? Does the second scroll say anything about that? Konohamaru was reading that scroll. It has a list of the teams and the pendants they will collect first. It seems that we must find a way to defeat 2 teams that have the right pendants to finish this mission. The scroll has all teams and all colors on them, which means we can determine which teams to go after. Do we know who was on which team? Rika asked. I know the ones on teams 1 and 2, as some of my friends are on them, but not the others. Moegi is on team 6 and Idan on team 8. We are team 5, then Hanabi is on team 10 and Yasagi on team 11, Konohamaru listed. Nitaro took out a notebook and wrote down what they knew, adding some names he remembered. They managed to get a fairly decent list put together, with at least 2 teams that had the pendants they would need each. They knew that there were about 30 teams overall in the test, but they could just get about half of that determined. This shows, any kind of information is valuable. We will have to remember that for future exercises. It would have been much easier to write down who was on which team in the beginning. And even if we didn't need that knowledge later, it wouldn't have hurt to have it either, Nitaro commented. Well, this is a training exercise after all, and I doubt we will forget this anytime soon, which was probably the reason Naruto-sensei did it, Konohamaru deducted. He seems to be somebody that prefers learning by doing, and making mistakes while they don't cost you too much. Seems like it, Riku nodded. It will be hard to fight 2 teams. We don't know too much about their abilities, and we didn't learn that much at the academy either. I'm not that good at taijutsu. Any of the children from larger clans would beat me immediately. We have to try and ambush them. And avoid Hanabi's team if possible. I heard she already has her Byakugan, which would make sneaking up on her team futile. That I can look through walls, Konohamaru informed them. Shit. So unfair. Well, nothing to do about it. Her team has a blue pendant to collect, but the same goes for Team 2. We don't know where the other teams are. And we also need to avoid getting our pendant stolen, which the other teams will try, Nitaro pondered. How about putting a storage seal somewhere where nobody would think to search for it? Riku suggested, like the inside of a sleeve. Good idea, Riku. That way it couldn't be stolen as easily. And we learn how to draw and transfer a storage seal in class. Konohamaru nodded and took out the sealing supplies that were in his pouch. He took 5 minutes to carefully draw a storage seal and then activated it. After that he transferred it from the sealing paper onto the inside of Nintaro's left sleeve and Riku sealed the pendant into it. It wasn't visible from the outside, and most others would try searching on their persons or in their pouches for it. Once they were done, Konohamaru put the sealing supplies away and they left the training ground to find a team to battle for their item. Naruto's clone nodded satisfied about a good plan and added some bonus points for the plan how to hide the pendant. It was the end of the school day and all the teams were back at the academy. Konohamaru, while not fully happy with how things had gone after they had found the pendant on Training Ground 23, was satisfied that they had managed to get all 3 necklaces and different pendants. It hadn't been easy at all. They had managed to defeat Team 12 for the green pendant, after battling them, as the ambush didn't work perfectly, but getting a blue one had proven tricky, as they couldn't find any other team than that of Hanabi, who they couldn't beat. At least the other team also couldn't get their pendants, as they didn't find the hidden seals on Nintaro's and Rika's inner sleeves. They managed to make the team believe that they had lost their pendant, and decided to try getting 3 new ones to still pass. In the end, coincidence had helped them with the blue pendant, as they decided to see if any of the other teams that should have got blue pendants had failed to get them. It took some running around the training grounds, but on their 4th try, Nitaro spotted an envelope lying around, which they opened and deciphered the code. They carefully made their way to the hiding place, again using their masks to protect them from the possible gas attacks, and found a blue pendant hidden under a stone inside a trap circle, which they managed to disable easier than the first one on their training ground. They had some practice now after all. Having all 3 pendants, they sneaked back to the academy, as some other teams had got the idea to set up ambushes for returning teams to get their pendants. Smart idea, but they failed to take into consideration that there were many entrances to the academy's ground, like through the obstacle course, where no team lay in wait. It was difficult to go through it without alerting the ones waiting for targets to appear, but they managed. Right now, they sat in their classroom. The only other team there was Team 10 with Hanabi, and they also had all 3 pendants on the table in front of them. Damn, I really need to become better in that stupid obstacle course, Riku complained. I didn't think it would be so hard to do things slowly instead of at a higher speed, like we normally do. True. I guess there are good reasons for all the physical conditioning we have to do during the week. But I have to say, this test was fun in a way, Nitaro replied. Yes, it was. I certainly learned much more than I ever did in class. I mean, hearing that things are useful to know is one thing, but finding out in action why and where, that's totally different, Konohamaru agreed. At least we finished the mission, meaning, we won't have to explain bad grades at home. Riku shuddered at the thought, Konohamaru and Nitaro agreeing with the sentiment. When the bell rang, it didn't take long for their classmates to arrive, some with 2 pendants, some with 1, others without 1. And some of their clothes showed paint splatters, meaning they got hit by the paint bomb traps. That would definitely be commented later on. At the end, 4 teams were led into the room by Naruto-sensei, and they all looked disappointed and looked to the ground. All right, class? This exercise has hopefully taught you several important things about being a ninja. We will discuss the results of the test tomorrow. All the other classes will have their tests over the coming days. I have placed all of you under a seal that will prevent that you can talk about the test and what it entailed with anybody else, meaning you can't even speak about it with your parents. Your parents have got a note from your homeroom teacher about the test that I had you do today and that, to not give the older years an unfair advantage, you couldn't talk about it for 2 weeks. Those that fell prey to the sleeping gas, it isn't harmful. Lady Tsunade has personally made it for me to show you what can happen on a mission. Think about the mistakes you made, the things that you did right, and you can collect questions you want to ask during the class tomorrow. The second years will be sent on to their test tomorrow morning, and once that's done, I will do a debriefing with you. You will start the day normally with your physical conditioning class. Like every day, after that I get the rest of the morning for the discussion of the test today. Now I want each team to come forward and hand in the pendants they managed to collect, Naruto instructed. He called each team's number, and they walked towards the front and handed over the pendants they had collected, if they had any. Once all groups were done, he dismissed them to go home. Of course, the children stayed to talk to their friends. That exercise was so unfair. A girl complained to her best friend, it was impossible that all teams could pass. I know. And that trick with the sleeping gas was mean. We didn't even get to collect our pendant, as we were knocked out once we got to the training ground that our code told us about, the friend whined. Others also mentioned things they didn't like, but the ones that had at least got 2 pendants were quiet. Most of them had realized that this type of exercise was similar to a mission to retrieve something that had been stolen by bandits. And they wouldn't be fair about things. Otherwise they wouldn't be bandits in the first place after all. Once they left the room, they found they couldn't speak about anything in the test and realized what exactly their sensei had meant, that he had prevented that they could talk about it. It drove home that seals could do much more than most of them had so far understood. Chapter 47, Debriefing. Naruto had just talked to the homeroom teacher of the second years, which had been sent onto the test about 15 minutes ago, and body flickered into the classroom of the first years. The children there showed different kinds of looks. Many were disappointed, angry, annoyed or worried. Others looked thoughtful, some satisfied, mainly the 2 teams that got all pendants, but all eager to find out more about their performance in the test. Good morning, class, greeted Naruto, like he always did. Good morning, Naruto-sensei, replied the students. As I told you yesterday, today we will go over the test you did. First things first, this afternoon, your homeroom teacher will address several areas that were repeatedly a problem for the teams that were trying to pass yesterday. Now that you have experienced the mock mission, you have a better base to understand what your teachers have tried to explain to you in classes so far. A ninja's life is never simply following some instructions. You always have to think, you need to investigate, you need to analyze. Otherwise it can and will end badly. I think some of you have realized that this modified capture the flag scenario could also happen once you are Genin, Chunin, or even Jonin. If a bandit group, a group of missing ninjas or perhaps even a trader of the village has stolen something, and you are tasked with retrieving it, you can't simply assume that all that the mission includes will simply be getting to the item and bringing it back. There will be traps, there will be obstacles, and often you will have to fight the thieves to retrieve the item. That was the basic idea behind the way I set up the test, something that can take place on a mission early into your ninja careers, explained Naruto, and he was happy to see that several children nodded along, having understood the reasons. Traps are common protections against those trying to get to an item. Thieves of all kinds will seek to either delay your progress or take you out when they intend to keep the item you are after. Never underestimate their trickery. There are many missing ninjas out there. The civil war in Kiri was a major contributor to the situation, but there are always those that feel treated wrong in the villages that decide that leaving would be better for them. Or washouts from the academies of a village that use their limited training to gain money by preying on the weak. There are numerous ways that people with ninja training can be part of criminal groups. Never dismiss the possibility. Now, the first part of the mission was actually before you actually got into the action. Something that you should have known but which many groups only did quite late. As you are beginners, it won't bring your grade down, as long as you did it before attempting the actual retrieval of your group's item, but in the future, this won't be treated as lenient anymore. I'm talking about a check of your equipment, pointed Naruto out. He looked over the class and many frowned, some blushed and several looked at the floor in embarrassment. You didn't pack the pouches that were used for the mission yourself, meaning, you didn't have a way to know what you had in there, except you had a look into them. Never forget checking your equipment. It doesn't happen often during a mission that you have to rely on equipment you didn't prepare yourself, or it shouldn't happen, but if time is short, you might be given a standardized pouch from a superior to immediately head out onto a mission. You won't have to deal with that as genin, but once you make chunin, it could happen. It doesn't take more than a minute to do a quick check of a pouch. Had you all done that, you would have noticed that there was a mask with filter seals inside each pouch. It was meant to give you a way to deal with the sleeping gas seals that I had placed on each training ground that was the destination for a team to retrieve their own item. How would we have known what the masks did? A girl from a group that had been knocked out immediately when they failed to exercise any caution asked, annoyed. I mentioned the use of this type of mask in our first lesson, and I covered the filter seals 1 month into your classes. It isn't my problem that you decided that sending notes to your friends instead of paying attention to what I was teaching you was more important, Kaori, stated Naruto with a stern look. You are responsible for doing the work here at the academy. And especially after the invasion, I expected you to understand that this world wasn't as safe as many of your parents would like to let you believe. The only way to protect yourselves and those you love is by being ready. Kaori looked down, chastised by the harsh words of their sensei. Another point was not rushing into the training ground, but actually slowly checking for traps. All the traps I used were on the same level you covered in the class for them. Outside of the fact that you had to check the seals for what they did, the setup was along the lines you were taught to recognize, use, and disable. Several teams did well on that part, complimented Naruto. Most of those that followed basic caution found most of the traps I built and disabled those they found properly. Though you should all revise the ways I taught you about determining which seal you are dealing with. Remember, a seals expert can let it appear as if you have a weapon storage seal with kunai, but in fact it holds a paint bomb. The members of Team 22 nodded in chagrin. They had found out that part the hard way when they wanted to unseal the weapons and got splattered with paint instead. Another point that I noticed, but which normally didn't hinder the groups, is that some of you need to invest more work into learning the codes used for encrypting messages. I used the first code you were taught this year, as I didn't want to make the test too difficult. Still, many of you didn't manage to decipher what was written there. As I mentioned, it didn't hinder the teams, as at least one member of each team could work out the messages, but you can't rely on always being in that situation. You have to know the basic codes of Konoha, as mission scrolls will often be encrypted to prevent that enemies can find out what kind of mission you have. In fact, the Hokage has already decided to start this practice with D-rank missions, as it gets you into the habit of working with codes, which is important for the higher-ranked missions. It can happen that you have to leave information for backup teams behind that can't be read by the enemy, should he find the hiding place. Information can be very dangerous in the wrong hands. Therefore, codes are vital to know for every ninja, declared Naruto. Several children wrote things he pointed out down, to not forget them again. Naruto then showed the blueprints of a trap field on the blackboard and went over how to properly approach the situation, how to disable the traps and then the retrieval of the item. As he had set all places up similarly, he only had to do this once. He let the children copy this down and told them to go over it again at home, to memorize it better. Then he continued to the next part of the test. Up to that point, this was all fairly standard. If I had ended it there, all teams could have passed the scenario. Had you studied properly and performed properly, you would have got a good grade easily. But that doesn't match ninja life. Something happens on a mission you didn't calculate for. In this case, I simulated that the item you had to retrieve consisted of 3 parts, which the opponent had split up among them to not make it too easy for a Konoha team to succeed. You had to enter combat situations against an opponent that was on a level close to your own, meaning your own classmates. As you are the youngest students at the academy, I gave you information which team got which pendant to retrieve. Had you paid attention at the beginning of the day, when the teams were created, you could have simply made a complete list of which team was which and known how to form a good strategy to get both other pendants. Many only knew the groups their closest friends were in, or perhaps a rival. That cost all but one team the chance to fulfill the mission perfectly. For this, congratulations to Team 11, who were the only team to retrieve their item and win against 2 other teams in combat during the time you were given for the test. Naruto looked at the 3 children, Hanabi, Jiromo and Papropi, that had been on the team with approval, which made them smile happily. But didn't Konohamaru, Nitaro and Rika also manage to get 3 pendants? Asked Moegi. They did, but they only defeated one other team. They found the loophole in the mission parameters and used it to their advantage, which was perfectly allowed. By the way, answered Naruto, I never said that you couldn't attempt to find items of other teams that didn't manage to retrieve them after all. And I left the envelopes with the instructions in the spots where the other team fell prey to the traps in case some of you got that idea. The 3 boys grinned at hearing that. They had worried that it would cost them points, but seemingly it was perfectly allowed. But that's not right, they didn't follow the rules, protested a boy. Which rules? Asked Naruto amused. If you remember, I didn't give you any rules beyond following the instructions inside the envelope, which gave you the location of your group's item, where you got new instructions. You had to retrieve the item within the given time period, and then follow the new instructions, which told you to get the 2 missing pendants from other teams. Nothing more. How? Well, that was fully up to you. You could ambush another team, fight them directly, trick them, steal the item, or see if others didn't manage to disable the traps. On a mission there are few rules, which is something you need to understand very quickly. Sure, among your allies you have rules, but among enemies you don't. During the Chunin exams that I participated in here in Konoha, which led to my promotion to Special Jonin, there was a test very similar to the one I gave you. We got 1 scroll and had to survive 5 days in the Forest of Death, while fighting at least one other team to get the scroll we were missing. And everything was allowed. There were no rules at all. Had we not been ready for anything, the other teams could have killed us. Several genin didn't survive the exams, and you know that many people died in the invasion. I repeat, this is no game. While nobody expects you to manage beating a trained ninja yet, you have to take the academy serious. Otherwise you will deeply regret it when you go out on missions, stated Naruto. Some children nodded, others frowned, some looked frightened. If this led to several children washing out, well, it was better to let those that couldn't shoulder the job leave and stay civilians instead of wasting money and time for training them for a job they could never bear. He had discussed it with Kakashi and he agreed that the children shouldn't be kept ignorant until their last years at the academy. It was much better to make clear what they could expect when they were ninjas, instead of letting them be killed. So, how will the different results be graded, Naruto-sensei? Asked a boy. Well, to answer this properly, have you been informed about the way the senseis at the academy were instructed to create your grades? Asked Naruto and only saw shaken heads. Then I will explain it for you. You know that the curriculum of the academy was changed during the end phase of the reign of the 3rd Hokage, right? Yes, we were told that the curriculum was bad for the students, as it didn't really prepare us for the time after we graduated the academy. Since then, many classes were changed, and the physical exercising aspect is much larger now, confirmed Moegi. At the same time, the way the grades of the students were determined was also changed, as, like with my classes, not all senseis have the option of teaching regularly, simply because the specialists that teach here have to go on to missions a lot of times. Thus, we needed a way to give you fair grades, even if we aren't present at school each week. The system, to make things fair, is used for all classes. At the beginning of a term, you start out with 0 points, explained Naruto. Okay, that's logical, nodded Hanabi. Over the course of the term, you have to earn points to build up your grades. These points are earned by participation in class, like correctly answering the questions of the teacher, achieving set levels during practical exercises, results of written homework, sparring matches and so on. Tests like the one I had you go through yesterday give you double the points you earned in the test. Same for official written exams. Over the course of a term, you collect the points, and when it's time to write the report cards, the senseis look how many points you have collected. That determines your grade for the term. Or course, you have more chances to get good grades in normal classes that you have more often, simply because you have more chances to collect points. Does that mean we could make up bad results, like from yesterday, by good results during class time, even if it's more difficult, Naruto-sensei? Asked Udan. That's correct, Udan. And it also means that a good test might better your grade if you didn't collect many points during classes. It should be an incentive for you all to always do your homework, by the way, as not handing in your homework on time will mean that you don't collect the easiest points. For the first 3 years here at the academy, it won't cost you points to not do your homework. In the last 3 years it will happen. If on the day you have to hand in the homework you don't have it, it will cost you 5 points, no discussion. You do the maths, shrugged Naruto. Some students looked worried about it. Why did none of the other senseis tell us this? Complained a girl. So far, it wasn't important for you to know it. Let's face it, you just started your education at the academy. I'm sure that all the teachers have made it clear that doing your homework is important, and have given detention if you didn't do it. As long as you don't refuse to do your work, you won't fail any classes. The requirements for each grade are lower than for the older years. Simply because it can be expected that somebody that has been at school for a while knows how to behave, and that the studies are important. If you want to get good grades, you have to study hard and train to do well in the practical classes. The expectations for you are still quite lenient. As long as you work hard, you will gain points in classes. For example, in this test, just checking the equipment you were given earned you 10 points, because I needed to set up certain benchmarks to look out for. Disabling a trap without triggering it earned 3 points, meaning, as each field normally had 10 traps, you could have earned an easy 30 points by just using what you learned in trap building classes. Correctly identifying what seal was used in traps, like if it was a storage seal for weapons or paint, also earned you 5 points. There were many things that allowed you to earn points. Take the information and remember it in the future. Everything can earn you the points you need to pass a class at the end of the term, pointed Naruto out. Even knowing the setup of the other teams? Asked Hanabi. I gave the teams that wrote down the correct teams 1 point per team they identified. Good question, Hanabi, nodded Naruto. Information is vital on a mission, especially correct information. If you know your opponents or allies and can immediately identify them, without giving up that you have that information, it will make all kinds of missions much easier and safer to perform. For example, if you identified a team with the same pendant as the one you got during the mock mission, you could have worked together to achieve your goals much easier. That was also allowed, even if none of you did it. We will work on that aspect again in the future. And you can never dismiss any information. Many children wrote that statement down, as it was important to remember. Naruto then continued to revise all the types of seals he had used in the test with them, and then told them which parts of the test a team had passed, and which were failed. Each student got a note with his personal results, as they could differ for teammates. Konohamaru saw that he and Nitaro had remarks about properly deciphering the codes on the papers, while Riku was reminded to revise the codes taught in class and didn't get any points for it. They had all got points for dismantling traps. It went on. If you had correctly identified seals you got points, though if the team had worked together and discussed which seal was which, they all got the same points, same for the fight against the other team to get the pendant. Creativity in interpreting orders also gained them points. Overall, it was a good report, and the comments on how to improve would help in the future to become even better. Once Naruto had answered a few more questions, he ended the class and left to continue with the test for the second years. Naruto stood inside his sensei's office, listening to the report that the teachers of the younger years at the academy were giving right now. It had been discussed that once all results from the mock mission test that Naruto had them perform were in, they would discuss the results with the Hokage. Kakashi listened intently and made some notes. I see, Kakashi commented once the last report was finished. There is still a lot of work to do, but there also are first signs that the children understand what they need to do to get proper grades at the academy, not to mention what being a ninja will be like. Yes, Hokage-sama. At the very least, it woke many children that had still thought that they could take the academy easy up. A few will probably drop out by the end of the term, but others will invest more work into their training, one of the teachers confirmed. Good. I believe it's better that they realize that they aren't suited for ninja live early on, when they can still switch to the civilian schools and get their education there. We need ninjas that can actually do the job and don't have ridiculous ideas of what being a ninja means. Sure, We don't want to traumatize children by letting them see the full reality of the job, but I remember too well how much work it cost to break Sakura out of the stupidity her mother had created. It's better they know what can happen and decide if they can manage that or not. In case you get requests from parents to talk about options, please handle them with care. You know that soon your students will also be taught certain craftsman skills at the academy. If those parents would be happier if the child concentrated onto a career as a craftsman ninja, we could lessen some complaints. The teachers nodded, knowing that the new programs that had been started were taking form and the next graduation class would be introduced to the results, while the Jonin senseis would still perform the tests to see if their candidates had what it took to become a ninja. Those that were unsuited for the normal job would be given a follow-up test to see if they qualified for other areas. The first craftsman ninja teams were nearly ready to start. They consisted of older genin that had either never entered the Chunin exams, as they would only die, according to the estimations of the senseis, or had failed several attempts. Kakashi had interviewed all those that had at least been ninjas for 6 years to find out the reasons and had then talked to the ones that simply didn't have the skill to advance in the ranks, but also didn't have any other option for their lives. Mainly they were orphans that depended on getting the payment from the D ranks and occasional C rank to pay their rent and the bills. Many were happy to agree to switch into the craftsman ninja branch. The idea of getting proper training as craftsmen and combining it with their ninja training appealed to them, and the payment for those specialized D ranks was a bit better than before, not to mention that they would get a basic payment each month independent of the missions they performed that at least covered rent and utilities. Others that didn't have the talent for craftsman jobs were delegated to the office ninja branch, or, if they had really good chakra control, they were sent to get trained in the medical program. It certainly thinned the ranks of actual ninjas and freed the genin teams to take up those missions that benefited them in their training, getting them ready for higher ranked missions in a reasonable time frame. Naruto, what are the overall results of your test? How many did at least collect a third of the possible points? Kakashi asked. Well, on average half of the students in each class got a third of the points or more. The main reason it wasn't more, Kakashi-sensei, was that the students were too bullheaded to stop and think what this test entailed, mainly that they should check the equipment before starting, or they stormed ahead, wanting to prove themselves. Several times one teammate brought the others down by not being careful when dealing with the traps, in combination of the team not realizing that I had given them the ultimate protection from the sleeping gas traps with the masks in their pouches. Had they managed to get to their item and decipher the second code, it would have already earned them 40% of the points I was willing to pass out for the test. Naruto informed the others. I see. I would like for all the teachers at the academy that teach the basic classes to use this experience of the students to revise the important things for any kind of mission. The children will be annoyed if they failed and aware of the advantages to always consider these things if they passed, but they will understand why they need to learn this. I also suggest telling them that a test about all the basic skills and knowledge will be taken in 2 weeks, to drive home that if they didn't already do it, they should brush up those things properly. I think each year should do 2 mock mission scenarios per month, both with different focus. For example, one could stress strategies and tactics, the other skills needed on a mission, the Hokage stated. It wouldn't be difficult to realize that, agreed Irika. We could have 3 years do them 1 week, then the other 3 during the next week. True. And if we have each of us teachers create one scenario, we could rotate the years through them until all 6 scenarios were done, and then create new ones. It would make the work better manageable, agreed one of the other 2 teachers. Good, I will leave the setup to you. I expect reports once the first round is over, Kakashi agreed. Now, you 3 may leave, continue with the discussed procedure. Naruto, you stay please. The 3 adults left, and Naruto was the only one staying behind. What is your impression of the academy transformation? Asked Kakashi, as he had given Naruto a secondary job while teaching Fuinjutsu. It is noticeable, but there is still a lot of work to be done, sensei. But that was to be expected, as the changes have only been in place for about 6 months and have had the biggest impact with the next graduation class, as their education had been changed the most to allow them to catch up on what they haven't been taught before. I expect that their group will produce less suitable ninjas than the following years, who simply have more time to practice and study the important parts, Naruto explained. I expected something like that. There simply hasn't been enough time to implement the changes that the Sandaime started fully. Kakashi nodded. What do you think about the proposal that Sam Inuzuka made during the last council meeting about probationary teams? It has merit, sensei. Considering that we need more time to get all students to a higher level at the time they graduate, it would be an advantage to take those among the graduates that show some promise, but not quite readiness to be full ninjas into a training phase under an experienced chunin that can remedy whatever they lack in their abilities. Though I would suggest to not put them in groups of 3, like some said, but 6, meaning 2 teams. That way, it would bind less personnel, which is still a bit limited for us. And a ratio of 1 sensei to 6 students would still mean that they get more individual support than the academy can achieve. If they also take some simple missions that don't strictly fall into the area of craftsman jobs, and which are left over from the full genin teams, which basically always happens, as there are too many D-rank missions available, they could get the experience needed over the course of 1 year, or then be transferred to branches that suit their talents better, Naruto pointed out. Yes, I agree. And this training could even be done by anybody that isn't cleared for full duty. Training genin candidates would be less dangerous or physically taxing than going out on missions, Kakashi mentioned. True. If they feel up to it, even some retired ninjas could be included in this area. Even if there are less of those now that the Sandaime reactivated them to teach at the academy, commented Naruto. I believe that there are still enough of them to manage getting a few back into action, at least among the younger ones that simply retired from the job due to injuries and the like. Most simply didn't want to teach at the academy, not believing themselves to be good at controlling a whole class, but training smaller groups and overseeing D-rank missions might be more to their liking. Naruto nodded, as there was a lot of sense in that. I also have a new mission lined up for you, Naruto, Kakashi informed him. What rank? Naruto asked professionally. B rank. But depending on how it goes, it could be upgrades to A rank, Kakashi answered. How long will it take normally? It should take between 2 to 3 weeks normally. We got a request from the Land of Birds. It's quite a distance away and the type of mission is a bit strange. I want you to use your abilities to find out what's really going on there. I believe that something fishy is going on over there. The client told about the appearance of a ghost that was terrorizing a high official from that country. They lost their precious daimyo recently under dubious circumstances. Somehow, he was poisoned, and no culprit was found, and after that the daimyo's daughter Toki was also killed, only leaving Sagi, the son, as the one remaining member of the daimyo's family. I will be sending a team under the command of Sasuke there. This team will deal with the official mission that was requested, but you will infiltrate secretly to find out the real situation. None of the team members will be informed about your presence there. Sasuke might notice you if he activates his Sharingan but won't mention it to the others. I plan on sending Ino, as she has made a lot of progress on poisons, which would be helpful on this mission, then Kiba and Choji. They have worked well as a team since their teammates were promoted to Chunin. Okay, I know what to look out for then. I have ways to prevent that Kiba and Akamaru can catch my scent to detect me, Naruto stated. Good. I want you to shadow the team until they reach the Land of Birds. I don't expect anything bad to happen, but their guide might reveal valuable information on the way there. Once you arrive, you will only contact the team if you have finished your part of the mission. The information gathering is B-ranked. Should you find out about some plot that you have to deal with, it will be A-ranked, explained Kakashi. Alright, I'll prepare for the mission then, nodded Naruto and left the office.